Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna listen to the whole thing. Since I don't know if anybody remembers I'm even here. Oh, yeah, my mic's on. It's it frozen like that? Drop frame. Um,
then calculated, well, if it was 0.22 seconds per thumb, what kind of distance are we talking about? And that's where the AI
hmm.
response was on this. It's like 65 yards or 68 yards or something like that. And then we said to the AI, no, 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 dummy, you're wrong. Recalculate, and I recalculated, it came back with
Oh, there
138
we go.
yards. And I think most people remember that 138 yards was the measurement. You guys remember that? That was correct after the yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can ask Perplexity now, and you can kind of see,
Yeah, you
you
can
can
see
lead with
my
this. You can say, scanning their range from an AR-15 fired at 2,500 feet
my
per
I don't know
second,
which.
witnessing a cracked thump of 0.22 seconds, would that place us 138 yards downrange, or are my calculations incorrect? So you offer the correct answer, and then ask it to check your work, so to speak.
Hey, anyway, this guy he doesn't have his glasses on anymore. He shaved his head. He's shaved his. $300,000 potential reward. Keep up the good work and revealing the truth about COVID, Mr. Hoover.
And then we go on to the answer. Based on the information provided, the calculation is close, but slightly off. Let's break down the scenario and calculate the cut-through.
The number crunchers. All right. Wait. Okay. I haven't been checking my mic just to make sure it was like doing the green thing. I'm excited. Oh, let's get excited. Oh, yeah. Timcast, Redonkulous, Invent Bait. Mm. It's like we're going through TV. This is my new cable. This is why the advertising cable and all these things are just going like just they don't know where their customers are going. Do you see all the things we have to choose from? You're watching me. You know you can choose between all those people too. This page. Anyway, remember, terrorists are all over this country, and I just don't know. Just yeah. I mean, I have a lot of files here. You go and you start looking for like different law enforcement places, and they have their wire posters up. Oh yeah, yeah. There's so many, and I don't have a Sonabi. Where is the Sonabi? Nobody would believe me if they didn't. They have to have a so. I simply must have a Sonabi. Yeah. Important thing is I know Mr. Abi looks like. No, not this one. Elijah Vu. Hmm. Missing children also. A Vu like a Saturn Vu, like a Saturn Vu vehicle. Sorry about that. People getting off work. Band was getting his debating Andrew Wilson at 2000. They started doing this yesterday. They started doing yes. Wait, okay. Oh wait, what's going on? We'll jump in and Tim Castle.
Social media posts of Trump shooter Thomas Crooks are revealed by social networking website CEO. Now, what's strange is the language used in that it is unconfirmed, but also to think it's true. Take that for what it is. It seems to be based on law enforcement request. This is his account and posts he made. And I think they're just trying to be careful in saying unconfirmed. But let's give you the news and you can make your own conclusions. And I'll stress, it is a strange headline because the Daily Mail is definitively stating these are the posts of the shooter. It says the CEO of Gab revealed posts that he claims may have been written by Donald Trump's rookie administration for Thomas Cook. Now, I just want to clarify, like, the games they're playing, how they're wording things. Go back online say that an unnamed law enforcement agency informed him that Crooks may have posted pro-Biden messages on Gab, the platform known for its alt-right users and conspiratorial content. I don't believe that's what he said. I believe they received an emergency disclosure from a law enforcement agency notifying them of these posts for the
Okay, yeah,
which
it's
leads
Dorothy Finger. Not the same one.
could not confirm that was the case. It's weird language. I'm going to stress that for another time. So we have some of these posts. They're all pro-Biden. They say the post in February 2021, the post replies to an electoral projection that didn't you also think Biden would lose in a landslide? Yeah. I would not be very confident in your election predictions. Another post, the Gabbies is offended by border policies, saying they don't incentivize human trafficking, and linked to a study that compares crime by undocumented migrants with those of legal migrants and American citizens in Texas. The poster wrote Biden executive orders don't incentivize trafficking as human traffickers aren't interested in citizenship. Likewise, the majority of illegal immigrants are not criminals, and in fact, some studies, such as the one linked below, show lower rates of crime committed by these individuals. I think they're trying to be careful here, but I think it's a 99% that these are the posts from the guy. I think it is
Let me check back again. No, I haven't muted it. Just my connection is being slow today.
Just so you know, I'm live right now, guys. Can you repeat that, Andy, one more time? I said, just so you know, I'm live right now. Oh, okay, what's going on? We're on the Crucible right now? Yeah. Oh, we're going on Crucible. Okay, here. Okay, sure. Everybody's live. Andrew, what up? What's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you again, man. How's life treating you? Life's treating really good. You know, just staying busy doing my thing. Good. Same old thing. Good to see you again. They're gonna see you soon, man. I'm going to Miami soon. Oh, you got to be here in the daytime. Ah, here in like a few weeks. Ah, okay, okay. I can't wait. We still got to go hunting. Oh, you still do that? Yeah, I did say we would do some gator hunting. We did say that. Um, I'm still taking that out, but we're doing it. We're doing it.
Mm. I had an alligator one time.
No, no, force me to.
An alligator burger at Newcastle.
So we should be out in about 5 minutes. I'm almost done, and then we're just waiting on destiny. Yeah, no problem. We got all the time in the world to see this. No rush. So, look, I think the big thing is from everything. Now, do you guys know how I set this up so that when I'm speaking, it moves over to me, and then when someone else is speaking, it moves over to them? That's you and you want me to control it like that? Like ping you when you talk and then ping Becky when you talk? Yeah, well, that's usually the best way to do it. I'm just curious how I would do that on my end. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just gave the team your three clips. So we'll get Jesse in here. Okay. And we'll get this thing going. And if you need anything, and so what I was thinking though is you could do your opening statements, make it like 2 or 3 minutes. You guys introduce yourselves, your stance, and well, I need about 5 minutes for my opening. You need about five? Okay. We'll make it 5 minutes. So I'll give you five, and I'll give Dustin five. And there you guys can introduce yourselves, your stance, etc. And then we'll go into like round one. And I'm thinking each round will be 3 minutes, and then we can move 1 to 2 open rounds where you guys just have open dialogue. But I'll give you at least 3 rounds where you guys are able to articulate your place with zero interruption. Sounds great. Awesome. Okay. I'll make sure Dustin's cool with that too. And if he's cool with that, we'll do a 5 minute opening, three-minute rounds where no one is interrupted. Then round 4 and 5, we'll do 5 minutes open. Is that cool? Yep, that's fine. All right, awesome. We'll party, man. I'm happy to host this week. Good to see you. Well, I'm really glad that you are hosting it for us. Much appreciated. How's life treating everybody in the studio, man? Great, bro. You guys know we don't normally film on Thursdays, but whenever we hit you up and say, hey man, can you do this challenge? You already know it's gonna be a yes. So yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that we can roll over. Oh, by the way, everybody who's currently in the Crucible audience, I think we're what are we at 5K right now. Make sure you go over and show some love to the moderating team. They all got together on their day off to make sure that this happened. I would actually prefer if you were going to send in the supers to send it their way. Putting that together is not an easy thing to do. Destiny, what's up, man? How are you? Hi, what's up? I'm live. What's anything? No, no, I won't. Andrew's live too. So, just want to make sure, just so it's clear for everybody. So, Destiny, you want to take a breakdown and let me know if you disagree. We'll each party 5 minutes to make an opening statement, introduce themselves, identify their stance, all that stuff. Um, and then we'll do 3 3-minute rounds where each of you speak uninterrupted, and then we'll do 2 5-minute rounds where it's open dialogue between the two of you, so 5 rounds in total, and then and that's pretty much it. So 5 minute opening, 3 3-minute rounds where you're not interrupted, something with the opening, and then 2 5-minute rounds where it's open dialogue between the two of you. That's it. That sounds good. Sure, yeah, I got that. And then what I also was thinking is, real quickly in the beginning, identify the definition of insurrection. I have here a violent uprising against an authority or government. Is that agreed upon definition?
You haven't heard any audio, have you? I've had like the desktop thing off on this. Too bad. What they're discussing when I realized that the mute was on is is the definition of insurrection. This is what I think. Oh, exercise. This is the not only a good workout, it's Webster's Third New International Dictionary unabridged, 1966. Insurrection. Mm. Insurrection. Insurrection, your MF insurrection, FRLOC. A lot of these things, a lot of like the really, really upper grammar that English students learn in high school, and only if you choose to take those classes, college students might learn. You know, insurrection. It is Latin insurrectus, past particle of insurgere, to rise against, insurge, plus ion, more insurge. One, an act or instance of revolting against civil or political authority or against an established government. So if you see, you can have an insurrection against civil, political, or an established government. Two, an act or instance of rising up physically. Synonyms: rebellion. So an insurgent is an act or instance of revolting against civil. Do you know what civil is? Civil means the police, the representatives of established government. To, to disobey, to resist the police officer is an act of insurrection. Hence, Florida's case law against disallowing felons to vote or run for office stand, according to that amendment. An act of resistance or rebellion against a civil authority, i.e., police officers. I'm sure they'll pop up sometime. Maybe I can. There we go. I was gonna try to remember if I knew the shortcut
No,
key.
I don't. We don't even got to play the intro music or anything like that. I'll just like we'll just go live, and then I'll you know what I'm saying, do a quick little intro.
How did I get so far behind?
Ah,
Well, I appreciate you moderating in such short notice. It's very kind of you to do.
bro, of course, man. You guys are both the homie with both you guys, so it's totally cool. Don't mind it at all.
And I see some familiar names in this chat too.
Yeah,
They know who they is.
yeah. So
Yeah, Romeo the clown.
All right, I'm gonna start up the live
you
now.
gonna start the live now? All right, cool. So I won't even do my intro, guys. Like normally with the music and all that shit, I'm just gonna, what's up, guys? Welcome to Fresh Fit Podcast. I'm here with Destiny and Andrew Wilson. Boom. We'll do some quick announcements, and then I'll just turn. Oh, who wants to go first? Andrew or Destiny?
I'll open first if Destiny has no problem with that.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like that's fair because I was the challenger.
All right. Destiny's okay with that. So what I'll do is I'll also give you guys like a 30-second warning. So so you guys kind of know, hey, try to wrap it up if you can.
Okay.
And I'll time each round. So the first one, the 5 minutes, the opening statement will be 5 minutes.
Waiting on the confirmation.
Just waiting on the confirmations. Okay.
You got my friend Big Mo in studio or what?
Yeah, he's here.
Tell him I said what's up.
Because they knew what we were doing, so like, nah, we don't want to fuck this one up, so we're both gonna come down.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Refreshing, making sure I get confirmation.
We started the stream. We're just waiting for it to like pop up on all the different platforms.
Sure.
I think we're live up on YouTube now.
I see YouTube.
YouTube's up. Okay. And then once we're go on all of them, I'll make the intro. Welcome, guys. Roll in when you guys can.
Waiting on locals in Rumble.
Okay.
Oh, I think I see locals. Right when I said that. That means Rumble should be. All right.
We're live on all of them? Okay. All right, guys. What's up? Welcome to the front. Oh.
Let's go to each one.
Gotta get 3,
Go ahead.
2, 1.
All right, and we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Air Podcast, man. I'm joined by two people that I call my buddies, good guys. Contrary to what people might say, Andrew Wilson and Destiny. Today I'm going to be hosting a debate between them on was January 6th an insurrection? Okay, the way this debate is going to go is we're going to have opening statements.
The Inquisition, hammer of heresy, Edward Berman. Processus Inquisitionis. The processus Inquisitionis. Inquisitionis. I don't know how to pronounce it. Latin. Was prepared in 1244 by the French Inquisitors Bernard of Croix and John of St. Pierre on the orders of Innocent IV and the Archbishop of Narbonne. It was intended for friars who were to act as inquisitors in the ecclesiastical province of Narbonne, including the dioceses of Albi, Rodez, Mende, and Lepine. The manuscript was discovered in the 19th century by a Dominican friar in the library of the University of Madrid. It consists of 9 sections, different from those of Raymond de Peñaforte in many details. In particular, it differs from the Spanish manual in being much more of a practical repository of phrases and formulas for inquisitors to use in their courts. It is assumed in this case that the inquisitors of Narbonne, who they are searching for, unlike less informed colleagues in Barcelona, and require legal formulas more than anything else. Once again, addressing themselves to the inquisitors of Narbonne, the authors unwittingly stress the local character of the Inquisition in the first 20 years of its existence. His manual goes straight to the point with the opening words. This is the procedure, after which it explains how the inquisitors should first deliver a general sermon and then issue a summons to heretics to appear before them. After this echo of Gregory IX's letter to Conrad of Marburg, the other 8 sections proceed as follows. 1. Modus citandi, method of citation. Throughout this manual, formulas are given with blank spaces left with the names and places of particular trial to be filled in. Thus the modus citandi begins. The inquisitors of heretical depravity greet such and such a priest in the name of the Lord. There are new features not in the directory. First, that the ages of 14 for men and 12 for women are given as the minimum for those who are to present themselves before the tribunal. Second, that a period of grace is established. If no inquisition has previously been held in a locality, then all heretics coming forward voluntarily within a certain period is granted an indulgence from imprisonment. This feature, with minor alterations, was to remain constant through the Inquisition's history. Oh, I guess it's like it functions like a court or something, and you get summoned and cited, and have to show up and answer questions.
So you know, I have no visual on my end when those play, and I'd appreciate it if you guys could put the visual up on my end as well. In fact, Destiny even agrees such rioting and political violence is part of the democratic process, akin to voting, he says. He said this to justify the George Floyd or BLM riots, that such riots were just one side of the Democrat coin and baked in to our Democrat process. The tail's in and just the other half of democracy, he says. Of course, he later denied this. Please play clip 2.
Okay. And we'll get this so that you can see it. Just 1 second. I'm going to stop the clock while we're right now we're 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Oh, hold on, Bills. I'm going to start the clock back up once, to be fair here, once the clip is up. Can you see it, Andrew?
I cannot see the clip, no, on my end.
He's going to make it visible to you here in a second.
Great.
And I stopped the clock just so everybody knows. Bear with us, guys. We're using a million different things, OBS, Zoom, all this other stuff. Shout out to Bills in the back, working hard. Can you see it now?
I can see something. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. So we will roll the clip now. I'm going to start the clock back up. Bills, go ahead.
Disingenuous sack of shit. Because, as I've debated you in the past, you started talking before January 6th ever occurred about how the BLM riots were justified. It was just the other side of the coin of voting. Of course, once you realized that grip wouldn't do as well for you when you were debating the Rittenhouse shit, you completely 180'd your position.
Did I ever, hold on, did I ever say writing is the other side of the coin of voting?
Probably did.
That's a really strange statement if I did. If I did, that's a really strange statement, but go ahead, okay.
Try to find a clip for it.
Activism and riots are one side of the coin and the other side is voting. I think there's conspiratorial at all. I think that affecting political change like this is fine. Like that's part of the goal. Like activism and riots are one side of the coin and the other side is voting.
Woo. So,
This is 20 seconds in. Go ahead.
so why the radical change of heart on this topic from Destiny? This complete 180? Well, that's simple. He hates Donald Trump. A simple motivation, but at least understandable. He also hates Trump supporters. In order for him to justify that he wants them all to be unalived, he needs to brand them all as traitors and insurrectionists. In this way, he can build a case that Trump supporters are evil, and so it is justified to use violence against them. To recap that, Trump supporters are evil, therefore anything which happens to them is fine. Going so far as to say his friend Pisco, the only reason he wouldn't have liked Trump to have been unalived by this would-be assassin is because it would motivate Republicans. This, of course, gives us an entailment that if it wouldn't motivate Trump supporters, he would be fine with Trump having met his demise in this assassination attempt. And this is the last clip. Play clip 3, please, and then I'll wrap this up.
Okay, we're 4 minutes and 20 seconds in, and we're going to stop the watch while we pull this up. Approximately 4:24 seconds, but I'm adding another 5 from the first clip and how we were pulling it up.
So far beyond that. So far.
Okay. I'll start the clock back up once we roll the clip. Can you see it, guys? Can you see it, Andrew? Oh, sorry. He's screen sharing it right now. Give us 1 second. We'll pull it up. Thank you, audience, and thank you guys for bearing with us here. Many things going on. We want to make sure that Andrew can see it as well as the audience.
Yep, I can see it.
You can see it? Okay. Bills, go ahead. I'll start the timer back up.
So far beyond that. So far giving a fuck beyond any of these fucking losers. But go ahead, yeah, sorry.
Can I ask you a question? So, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Do you wish the attempt had been successful?
Do I wish that the attempt had been successful? Fuck, am I even allowed to say anything about that?
You don't have to answer that.
Here's what I'll say. This is what I will say. I don't know, because I'm trying to Fed post whatever. Here's what I will say. A failed attempt is probably the worst outcome of anything that could have happened. I'll say that much.
I disagree. I think a successful attempt, if that had happened.
Well, actually, hold on. We might agree. The successful attempt, or
Stop real quick,
attempt,
Bills.
it would be an attempt at that point. The successful,
Pause real quick. So, guys, we just hit pretty much the 5-minute mark. Destiny, if you're okay with it, I can let this kind of go on another minute or so, and I'll afford you an extra minute and give you 6. Are you okay?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can learn about this thing out, man.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So we'll. Complete this out. I'll time it. Whatever I gave Andrew, I will give to you as well on your opening statements if you're okay with that. Go ahead, Bills. Roll the clip back. Thank you, Destiny.
Whatever, might be the worst thing that happened. But if it was the worst thing, it would just because of like the country's reaction afterwards, basically, which is possible. Yeah.
I mean,
So, ultimately, Destiny needs to be able to provide us with what an insurrection actually is, an actual working legal definition, or even a personal one, so we can work off of that to understand the mindset of a person who claims this was an insurrection, even as nobody ultimately is prosecuted for an insurrection. He, to date, hasn't done this for the same reason the Supreme Court and higher courts won't. If they do define it strictly and categorize it strictly, then it's likely Democrats and even Republicans are engaging in them all the time. Non-stop, in fact. I am, in fact, willing to, in the ultimate spirit of good faith, concede that if Destiny just can't really define an insurrection or tell us what goes into that category, and not into the category of a riot, that he really has no business calling anybody an insurrectionist, especially when nobody's been charged with an insurrection in regards to J6. Nobody, and certainly not convicted. I will concede, however, if he concedes Democrats are likely involved in insurrections all the time, using violence for political change, I'll concede Republicans may be as well if his definition is that broad. However, that will eliminate his moral high ground for the justification of do what you want to them because they're traitors. That would also make you a traitor. With that, I'll cede my time. Note in that video that the entire audience, when he was asked this question by Pisco, said yes, we would have preferred that Trump was unalive during that assassination attempt. Go ahead.
Okay. So that I have approximately 6 minutes and 45 seconds there. Destiny, I will reset the clock and allot you the same exact amount of time to stay fair here. Let me know when you are ready, and I'll restart the clock.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever.
Ready? Okay, I'm going to start it now. I'll give you 6:45, and go ahead, brother.
All right. I believe that the subject matter of the debate is whether or not January 6th is an insurrection or would be considered an insurrection. Originally, I thought this was going to be a 1v1 debate against me and Andrew, but I can do a 1v2 debate against my 2021 less educated self as well. I have no problem speaking to arguments I've made in prior clips. I have no problem speaking to current arguments made by Andrew. So we can head down that road. I think that the first thing that we need to acknowledge when we talk about the structure of the United States government is that the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is what powers our three branches of government, and it sits above every other part of our government, and every part of our government must comport to the Constitution. I think this is a foundational American belief and principle, and if you don't share on this foundational belief, then we're never going to connect in any sort of meaningful way when we talk about how U.S. law or U.S. process or procedure, whatever, should be carried out. So that being said, there was an amendment to the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, and Section 3 of that amendment basically goes on to say that any prior oath taker that has engaged in or aided in an insurrection is no longer allowed to hold office, essentially. Now, the question that we come to today is trying to define what is an insurrection. And while in modern times, it seems like an insurrection is a term left to a dictionary or a term left to internet debaters, at the time that the amendment, the 14th Amendment, was framed, what was an insurrection was pretty well understood. An insurrection includes four vital elements. One is an assemblage, meaning a group of people that have come together. Two is resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Three is you have to do this by way of force or intimidation. And four is it has to be through for a public concern or a public cause, not a private thing that one might be interested in. Just for some understandings of when we say an assemblage, we can look to in 1861, Justice Benjamin Curtis said a combination or conspiracy by which different individuals are united in one common purpose. So not just a bunch of people in a city protesting different things, but a group of people that are united in one common purpose. We can look to Justice Samuel Chase in the case of Freeze in the year 1800. He says if a body of people conspire and meditate an insurrection to resist or oppose the execution of any statute of the United States, a statute such as the ECA, the Electoral Count Act, which is what they were united on January 6th to insurrect against. They were opposing the execution of that. They are only guilty of a high misdemeanor, but if they proceed to carry such intention into execution by force, which we did see on the day of January 6th, regardless of if every member engaged in force or just one, they are guilty of the treason of levying war, and the quantum of force employed neither lessens nor increases the crime, whether by 100 or 1,000 persons is wholly immaterial. Doesn't matter if you have an insurrection of 50 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people. You only really need 2 people there to make it an insurrection. In terms of whether or not they were resisting a law or interfering with the cause of government, we can quote here, an insurrection against the United States requires resistance to any statute or some public law of the United States. This is a quote by Judge in, I think, 1826. Curtis spoke this to a jury. He says, the law does not distinguish between a purpose to prevent the execution of one or several or all laws. An insurrection could be directed at a legislature as well as at executive officials. William Rawle declared that an effort to coerce or repeal of a general law to be an overt act of levying war. And Justice Field's opinion in the Great House Court case held that any effort to coerce the conduct of government constituted an insurrection, such as when people went to the White House, or I'm sorry, went to the Capitol to coerce Pence to overthrow the election, which is what Donald Trump told them to do. By force or by intimidation, quoting Justice Marshall in 7, the most comprehensive definition of living war against the king or against the United States, which I have seen, requires an assemblage of men ready to act and with an intent to do some treasonable act and armed in warlike manner, or else assembled in such numbers as to supersede the necessity of arms. You don't necessarily need weapons to do it. You could just have the numbers of people there threatening to use force or intimidation. And then for a public purpose, obviously, the insurrection is to, quoting Judge John Kane here, insurrections to redress by force national grievances or to reform real or imaginary evils of a public nature.
SJWs as they inject
Obviously, they were protesting the vote. That's what they were there to do. This is obviously a public issue. So, to recount, for the assembly, there were hundreds of people that reached the Capitol building. There were thousands that trespassed on federal land. For 2, there was a clear resistance to the federal law. The trespassers were there to contravene the Electoral Count Act. There was a plethora of evidence brought up in the Anderson versus Griswold case about this, where, quoting the judges on that case, they said substantial evidence in the record showed that the mob's unified purpose was to hinder or prevent Congress from counting the electoral votes as required by the 12th Amendment and from certifying the 2020 presidential election. The third element, the resistance made extensive use of force. This is self-evident just by watching any of the videos. To quote the Colorado Supreme Court again, the mob repeatedly and violently assaulted police officers who were trying to defend the Capitol. Obviously, there were calls to hang Mike Pence, and people marched very famously with 1776 signs, which, as many in this audience might be familiar with, is a very popular insurrection in U.S. history, or a rebellion even, one might say. And then for a public purpose, it was obviously for the public purpose of resisting what they perceived to be as the stealing of the election. There are ways to try to counter this argument. We can either use nonsense definitions of insurrection, but that doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters was the public understanding and the legal understanding of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was created and when Section 3 was framed, because that's what the Constitution demands, that we look at what was thought of as an insurrection when the language was added to the Constitution. We can try to divert by talking about BLM or anything else, and I'm happy to dive into all of those examples if we are going to concede on the original argument that January 6th satisfies all 4 elements of what I consider an insurrection to be. If we want to concede that and move on to analyzing any particular BLM action or whatever, that's totally fine. We can talk about the likeliness to work, which an insurrection has never been defined as. An insurrection doesn't necessarily have to lead to the overthrow of a government. That would be understood as a rebellion. Every insurrection is not a rebellion, though every rebellion starts as an insurrection. And then when we say, this is a common one as well, why was no one charged with an insurrection? People can be charged or couldn't be charged with crimes for a variety of reasons, but for purposes of the 14th Amendment, nothing in there requires the criminal conviction.
I don't want to use my. This page is slowing down Firefox. See if the browser stops this page. No. I have another. Yeah, it's frozen up here. I don't think I accidentally. No, it's this one. What an unfortunate screen to get stuck on. What an unfortunate. You gonna try to tongue kiss me? What's going on, Steve? Sorry about all this. I just don't use this thing much ever since. Well, I think I tried to live stream while watching The Chosen because they say they want their shows to be seen. Slow down so much. No, hot this thing's good. I mean, it's pretty warm. I don't have air conditioning. But that is a thing for weak people, isn't it? Because she's not one. Candace one of those things that hates everything she's not. Yeah, I don't know how to talk about physics anymore. Well, theories about antimatter, matter, dark energy, this type of stuff. I guess when they started like theorizing about to the point where it's very useful,
Proceeding by force or intimidating for
protons,
public.
neutrons,
This is
there's like
very
another
nebulous. So unless
universe.
Destiny is going to
They number
concede
these two
that
things. Boom.
anything which meets this criteria is an insurrection, then I'm not even sure how to go forward with this debate. How in the world can he say essentially almost any riot on planet Earth or any assemblage, even a peaceful protest where they shut down the roads, is an insurrection? That can't be true. That just can't be
But
true.
it is true.
Okay. We had ended there at about 2:57. Andrew, you're up on our channel. They can see you. I don't know if it's on.
Yeah,
your...
we're good on mine too.
Oh, you are okay. Perfect. I just want to make sure that we're there. So, but you are definitely up on, and whoever's speaking, I always make them the main person. So, Dusty, I'm gonna put this is round one. I'm gonna put 3 minutes on the clock for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, brother.
So I think my definition is pretty clear. There is an assemblage. There's a clear resistance to the implementation or the execution of some federal law. The resistance has an aim to make use of force or intimidation, and it's gathered for a particular public purpose. BLM almost automatically fails on the fact that these were not usually.
I mean, is Marion? Is Marion like most familiar around? Who's Marion? You're like, I know you. Like, I know you. You're like, but he is a Department of Homeland Security. He used to do those investigations. Remember America's Sheriff David Clark? Do you remember the revelation David Clark Jr. on the guitar? The time just they lost all respect for Joe Rogan as if he had never heard of a guitarist before or anything. But anyway, criticism hurts and bad words hurt. And live your life with getting death threats and stuff. And every time you get a new identity, the death threat starts again. Yeah, we can't sing along with no David Clark Jr. This land. We can't sing along with that. No, no matter how good of a song it is, you just don't get that card. Unless, of course, he's actually acting like a
or there wasn't a riot that actually happened, nobody would make that claim. There's a whole list of reasons why a prosecutor may or may not charge for particular crimes. In this particular case, there were really good reasons not to head down that insurrection charge road because it would probably put the Supreme Court in a very hairy area, which they might end up getting into anyway in terms of actually having a strict definition of what an insurrection is. But again, the 14th Amendment doesn't require a strict definition of insurrection in order to disbar somebody from running from office. All it needs is for a court to engage in asking the question of whether or not somebody had engaged in an insurrection, and if they had and were a prior oath taker, then they were barred from taking any public office in the future. So yeah, again, if there's an alternate definition that wants to be explored for an insurrection, then I welcome that. But that definition, it needs to comport with the historical and legal understanding of what an insurrection was. Otherwise, it's just meaningless, meandering. Opining that means nothing when we should be thinking like, what was the definition of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was drafted.
Okay,
like
that's 2
alcohol.
minutes and 40 seconds. You don't want to use the rest of the 20 seconds, Destiny? Okay.
I mean, like, we can. If this ends up going into like a whole bunch of like BLM stuff, I mean, we can get to that, but that has no bearing on whether J6 would be considered an insurrection. So.
All those bodies,
so
all the
2 minutes,
pornography
57
played
seconds.
around on the floor.
That completes round one. I will restart the clock. We'll move into round two. I'll turn it back to you, Andrew. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll turn the clock on.
So I'm not claiming that this has anything to do with BLM. I'm doing an internal critique and saying that if you're going to apply these nebulous standards to this, then you must apply them to this. If this category, if category A over here, also would include everything which includes a riot, then we would need to know what the delineating factor is. He claims here there must be some federal element. However, that's not in his definition. His definition does not include any federal element. To go over his definition again, an assemblage resisting law by force or intimidation for public purpose. It doesn't say anything about a federal element. He just pulled that out of his ass. I don't know where the hell he got that from. It's definitely not in his definition. If it was, he should have said that that was in his definition. He said he keeps going back to this illogical idea that just because X doesn't happen doesn't mean X isn't true. Yeah, that's true, but it also doesn't mean X is true. So making the claim that, well, wait a second, Andrew, just because they weren't actually charged with insurrection doesn't mean they weren't guilty of insurrection. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't mean they were either.
So
And I have the
extremist
evidence
drama.
on my side, as none of them
Remember
were actually
Boogie answered door with a
prosecuted
gun?
for insurrection. None of them were prosecuted for insurrection,
You
and
see, you
Trump
want to put your
was
political
acquitted
beliefs out
for
there?
inciting insurrection. So the evidence is on my side. He would actually have to demonstrate that this was an insurrection and that they were all wrong,
No, ICE
that
is
they were
horrible
completely
thing.
incorrect
You know what?
in not
I don't know
charging it
which
this way. He just keeps saying,
Have you ever
well, there's a
tried to,
variety of
like,
reasons why they didn't.
like, hey,
Well,
don't
that's
stop
nice.
Twitter.
Couldn't one of
Yeah,
the reasons be because it
because
wasn't an insurrection?
they must have
Yes,
some
that
major
seems to be a
people
very
somewhere, like,
obvious reason,
delete,
doesn't it?
delete.
Um,
I need to delete
going
everything
back
from the past
to my
2 years. I didn't even know if you start looking at this shit. That's how I feel. Oh, I don't know whether my coworker called my other coworker
happening. I
and
just want to
N-word.
kind of point out that
I
Destiny
don't
has
know what's gonna
changed
happen
his
to them.
entire idea on this,
But
whereas
once
at
you've
first he
already been
claimed
known for
in 2021 this was in no way an insurrection, that it
I
fit the
went driving
criteria
with
of
a
a
car.
riot
I'm not
from
gonna
anybody who's looking at it objectively.
anyway,
I
you ever
agree with him. That's
you
exactly
ever like been
what it
trapped in a
fits.
car with Bob?
But he still has not demonstrated at all that
Bob
this was
ever tell
actually
you
an insurrection. He just says, well, I
Yeah,
have this
I think
nebulous
every
definition.
contractor wants
He
to
also
Bob.
says, give me a counter
Oh,
definition.
you
It's
look
not my burden to give you a
where-
counter definition. What do you mean? I'm not calling them
Then you
insurrectionists.
tell you're the
You're
mud
calling them
guy.
insurrectionists. I don't have to define for you what that means. You have to define for me what that means.
Yeah.
Giving me these four elements here is meaningless
You can
unless you can
read-
tell me what goes in those categories specifically that does not go in the category for rioting. Because as I look at an assemblage,
Make it past 47,
resisting any
maybe.
law by force or intimidating or for public, that could all just be rioting. That does not really tell me what goes in the category. You didn't include federal anything. So I would like for you to actually expand on this definition so I can understand what the hell you're talking about and why the J6ers specifically fit this criteria.
All right.
not that way.
That is 2 minutes
Maybe
and
it's
49
big.
seconds. Destiny, I'll turn it to you whenever
And
you're ready.
you know that
And we are in round 2 right now, the bottom of
only
round.
family ever truly.
Yeah,
got
so
this out.
people like again. So there's two parts to the insurrection. Two elements that I
trying
don't
to
think would
run
fit. So the first one is
success
an assemblage that would clearly fit a riot, I
Please,
think, but
please.
it would fit a
Surely
riot
not
and it
your
would fit an
brother.
insurrection.
Surely you did not leave him
The
behind.
second part is resisting a
left your
particular
brother
law
behind?
or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. There are plenty of riots that aren't riots
Oh, but it worked out
to
really good
resist
for you, huh?
like the implementation of a law or
But
to
you left
interfere
your brother
necessarily with
behind.
like some government proceeding. We can imagine a million reasons why people might riot outside of a baseball game. People might riot
Muhammad and
in protest to a statement that was made or in relation to, I don't know, the outcome of a sporting event. Like, there's tons of people that can riot that aren't rioting with the goal of resisting the implementation of a particular law or trying to interfere with the course of some government proceeding. So the part two, the second element I've listed, really wouldn't comport with most riots. And then the third one is the third element by force or intimidation. I would say that riots generally have a forceful or intimidating aspect to them, although they generally happen spontaneously. Usually they're not planned in advance to use like force or intimidation. To quote Justice Greer, quote, legal authorities carefully distinguished planned insurrections from spontaneous riots. Justice Robert Greer charged the grand jury in the United States v. Hanway that a defendant who was not leagued with violent resistors to federal law could not be prosecuted for treason. Greer insisted that spontaneous riots were not insurrections, that insurrections required a commitment to use force to resist law, not spur-of-the-moment violence. Most riots just kind of like happen. It's pretty rare that they are planned in advance, and I think we all agree that if they are planned in advance, it takes on a much different character, and arguably could call under it like different types of crimes. If people engage in rioting, it's not good, but if people are literally planning it out in advance, we're calling in a whole bunch of different crimes there than just the simple thing of calling a particular thing a riot. And then for the fourth thing, when we say for a public purpose, the fourth element, this is the second thing that I don't think most riots would necessarily be in opposition to, that we are insurrecting for some sort of public grievance relating to like the actions of a particular government. So like you might riot, for example, BLM might riot against like police violence, but
what is there's not like
You
a
know,
particular
they
federal
roamed the
statute or
land
federal
with a
law
lot
there.
of might.
In terms of me
And boy,
specifying
oh
the
boy,
federal
have
part, well, I mean,
you
J6
seen the
was a
glorious
insurrection against like a
paradises
federal entity. Again, if we
of
want to talk about like
your
state
hanging
insurrections or something,
gardens
I
and
guess
just
we can. But the
ideal.
differentiating
It's like,
factor
have
here
you
is why
been?
the federal part is we're
Have
talking
you
about
been?
federal
Have you been
insurrections, and
lately?
especially for the 14th Amendment, the federal insurrection part is what we're
Oh,
kind of talking about. I'm not even sure if you can do a state insurrection. Maybe you can. But I mean, like summarizing this argument, like the Colorado court found that Donald Trump
are we
acted
feeling like the
as part
type
of an
of people that
assemblage,
just like
okay, that
kill
he helped
you
bring into
after you
being.
loan
He
them
called the
money?
people there. Trump
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
resisting
You'll
the
be back
enforcement
soon.
of
Okay, you'll be
federal
back
and
in jail. Let's take
constitutional
your
rules.
phone.
He was contravening the 12th
Oh,
Amendment,
hey,
and he was
hey, guys,
resisting the Electoral
you don't
Count
have to
Act.
do that. Boom, boom,
Donald
boom,
Trump,
boom.
he took numerous illegal
Yeah,
actions to
man,
prevent the
attack
peaceful
me.
transition of presidential power. This is like a function of the government. He engaged
He's
in
trying to take my money.
ongoing course of conduct aimed
That
at
is
producing
time.
violent resistance to the peaceful transfer of presidential power, and he was attempting to incite support to attack Congress. Yeah. Whether or not somebody's charged doesn't matter.
Somebody buy oil on
That is
IOUs.
time. So what I'll do is that
Somebody buy
concludes
oil on
round two.
IOUs.
Andrew, I'll turn it back to you unless you want me to give Destiny a little bit extra time, and I can give you that extra
Yeah,
time as well on the
fracture's
back
good.
end. But I'll let you choose that.
Yeah, I'm fine. He can finish.
Okay. Destiny, go ahead and finish. And
Yeah,
I will,
sure. The final point was that, but my final statement is, okay, if you looked at the Colorado court case, they found that Donald Trump acted as part of an assemblage that he helped bring into being. It said that Trump was
Do you want to
resisting
sell me
the
some
enforcement
oil?
of federal and constitutional
Because my
rules,
oil
that Trump
prices
took
blew up.
numerous illegal actions to prevent
You
the
want
peaceful
to sell me
transition of
some
presidential
oil? Because
power.
my
He
oil.
engaged in an ongoing
Oh yeah,
course of
this
conduct aimed at
the
producing
chili.
violent resistance
My
to the peaceful
saviors
transfer of
come.
presidential power. He attempted to incite his supporters to
Remember
attack Congress,
how
which
the
they did, and that
Iranians
Trump's
blew
speech
up
occurred
our
sufficiently
oil
close
field?
in time and
Look
place
at
to when and where the insurrection took place to be considered
somebody
an
from
incitement. Like
America
every
with
single
some
part of this, like
who's
very
selling
easily
that
and very
oil
cleanly meets the
producer.
definition of
Who
insurrection. If
could
you want to argue that my definition isn't clean or that
former
all four elements are
President
being met,
Obama?
that's well, I don't
Oh
know how
my
you're going to
God,
argue
let
that. I
me
think all
hug
four
you.
elements are being met. If
Oh
you want to
wait,
argue that, well, every
Gaddafi
single
ever
riot
hugged him.
would,
Run,
you know,
Gaddafi
fall into this,
hugged
we
him.
could say, well, fine, Destiny, I agree. For your definition of insurrection, fine, January 6th was an insurrection. Now let's talk about these other events, and we can talk about whether they fit or don't fit. Or you can give me your own definition of insurrection, and then we can go from there.
okay, that added an extra 55 seconds. So we'll go into round three. Andrew, I will give you that. So you will have 3 minutes and 55 seconds to
Yeah.
your time. So I'll start at the clock now.
Yeah, so again, trying to put the burden on me to give you a definition of your claim is insane. As we went through your definition here, it's really funny because I'm going to use your own logic back to you. Just because they weren't charged with an insurrection doesn't mean it wasn't an insurrection. Oh, okay. Well, they were actually charged with elements of rioting, so I'm going to say it was actually rioting. And I'm also going to say that, wait a second, your definition here seems to be more about rioting than anything else by your own claim. An assemblage would fit a riot, says Destiny. That's his
He
first
changed
claim.
his name. He's one of us.
Interfering with the course of a government proceeding.
Michael, don't run away. You're one
Rioting
of us.
itself, says Destiny, even though rioting
Yeah, I'm
itself is
snitching on you.
against the law. What do you mean? Of course it's impeding the law. Well, how could it not be impeding the law? Rioting itself is against the law. I don't know where the hell you came up with that. By force or intimidation, Destiny concedes riots require force for a public purpose. He concedes that's a riot. So really,
If the
under his
man doesn't want to
definition,
go
this is
behind
just
the
a
green
riot.
door,
The only thing
if the
that
man
we're
doesn't
arguing
want to
about
go
here
behind
is
the
number
green
two,
door,
resisting
the
any
man
law
doesn't want
or
to go
interfering with the
behind the
course of a
green
government
door.
proceeding. Let's try this again. Resisting any law
Red one, the
or
choice.
interfering with the course of a government proceeding. A riot itself is resisting the law because it's illegal to riot. So I don't understand how that, again, would not just be a riot. All of these things seem to fall into the category of what people were charged with, which is much more along and akin to rioting than it is any type of insurrection. He still hasn't told us the distinction that fits in this category, why this isn't a riot, even though everybody was charged under that kind of branch of rioting and not charged for insurrection. This is a garbage definition. It's totally nebulous, right? And he keeps on saying, well, wait a second, Andrew. Why don't you go ahead and concede that unless you can go against all four of these points, well, I don't actually have to do that. All I need to do is say, okay, all of these 4 points fit a different criteria better than insurrection. And apparently he agrees. He agrees on point 1, point 3, and point 4. The only thing he argues is point 2, but his argument for point 2 makes no sense because rioting itself is illegal, so therefore you are resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Well, the government proceeding is to enforce law. You would be interfering with the government enforcing law if you're rioting. So all of these fall under the better criteria of riot, which is it's totally consistent in my mind because that was the criteria in which people were charged, not with insurrection. And I really need Destiny to answer to that.
Okay, that was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. You still have a minute left, Andrew. You're going to concede that round then?
Yeah, I'll let him go ahead and answer to it.
Cool. So I will turn it back to you, Destiny. We're in round 3, and this is the second part of round 3. So your turn, Destiny. I'll start the clock back up for you.
Breaking a law and resisting law are not the same thing. Usually when people riot, they're not rioting with the purpose of making arson or murder or whatever other crimes are being broken to make those legal things. Usually they're breaking laws, not with the intent of like resisting the implementation or the execution of those laws, or resisting or contravening the execution of like some function of government. When people were rioting on January 6th, the goal of that was to stop the execution of the Electoral Count Act. It was to stop the purpose of the government, the execution, the function of government to do the peaceful transfer of power. They weren't simply engaged in violence and breaking the law. They were resisting the carrying out of the law, the Electoral Count Act, the ECA. And I don't know, we can loop on this over and over again, but again, if I can show you in Kenosha, if I can show you in Seattle, if I can show you a riot, if I can give you a video of cities burning, of people screaming and throwing shit, of, property being destroyed or damaged, and then you were to go, wow, that kind of looks like a riot to me, I would go, yeah, it kind of does. However, nobody was actually charged with the crime of rioting. So do you change your mind on that? Probably wouldn't affect your opinion at all. Again, whether or not you levy a particular charge at a person is way different than whether or not a particular event was a thing. Remember, when you levy a charge at somebody, a criminal charge, what you're really saying is that you can take a person, an individual, and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that no reasonable mind would agree that something else could have happened in front of a jury. That's what criminal court is for. Proving that somebody engaged in a crime beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal court is not the standard that we use to declare a particular thing a thing. You don't have to prove in criminal court beyond a reasonable doubt that a thing was an insurrection or that a thing was a riot unless we were charging somebody with an actual crime.
Okay, that's 150 on the clock. So that concludes round 3. And I'm going to turn it to you, gentlemen. You guys can let me know what you want. We can either do another round of 3 minutes uninterrupted debating. If you guys want to formulate your arguments a bit more, because I know there's some...
I would like to do one more round if we could.
Or Destiny, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Who was an
Okay,
early
and then
victim of murder,
after
and he
that, so we'll go
didn't feel
into
that he
a
was
4th round
not
with the
preferred to
3-minute
more than any other
debate
period
time
than his
limit,
own.
where no
He tells
interruptions.
us
Then
that
after
he
that,
sought an
we can get
escape by
into the 5
imagining it
minutes
lived in
of
some other age,
discourse between you two
the
where you can actually
19th
speak.
century,
Is that fair for
which
everybody?
begat
Sure.
us,
Sure.
was
All right,
forever
so I will
blowing the
go ahead and
trumpets of
reset the
freedom,
clock.
providing a silence in
This
which
will be
his
round
most
4.
sensitive children could take
Take it away,
refuge.
Andrew.
Yeah, so this is an absurd
Words
argument.
were
We'll go right
fled
back
from
to Destiny's
mankind to
logic
rejoin
again.
nature.
He says just because
Chateaubriand
somebody
fled
wasn't charged
from
with
man
X
to
doesn't mean
rejoice in
X didn't
savages.
happen. This is the
Byron
same. This is
fled to
complete
an
total
imaginary Greece,
obfuscation,
and
by the way.
William Morris
Because
to the Middle
ultimately,
Ages.
what's going
If
on
you
here is
tried
that
an
these do fit the
imaginary
criteria
India,
much better for a riot. And
you
under
an
the
equally
purview of
imaginary
rioting,
China.
these are the types of
Many
charges
fled to
which were levied
Bohemia,
at
to
these people.
Utopia,
Destiny says specifically
to the
under
Golden
point
West,
2,
and to the
he
Latin
said,
Quarter,
and he didn't answer
and
to this.
some,
He said
like James
resisting
Thompson,
any law or
to
interfering with the
hell,
course of a
where
government
they were
proceeding wouldn't fit
gratified to
rioting.
gain
Yes, it does fit
that
rioting.
positive
It
eternity
fits rioting better
obtained
than anything else I
instead
can
of
think
this
of.
insufferable
Yes, you are
adventure.
immediately
We had
upon
all
rioting,
been disappointed by
resisting
the failure of a
law,
great
and you
prophecy.
are
The theme
obstructing
of this
the law
prophecy had been that man
immediately.
is a
That is
beautiful
what a
soul, and
riot
in the course
is.
of
It's an
history,
unlawful
become
assembly.
enslaved by
So how he could
scepters,
say this?
tiaras,
In fact,
swords,
each
and
point
chains, and
he
tones,
concedes on point
of
1, an
reasoned
assemblage that
wrong
would fit a
brought
riot.
on by
An
ignorance.
assemblage would fit a riot. That's
Many
point 1.
believed
He
with
agrees.
Shelley that the
Okay.
loathsome
Point
mask
3,
of
by
color,
force or intimidation.
man
He
exempt
agrees
from
on point
all
3
worship
that
degrees, king
is
over
a
himself,
riot.
would then be
He agrees
free from
on
guilt
point 4.
or
He
pain.
conceded on that as well, and then he just conceded on point 2. He couldn't exactly tell us why resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit a riot. Of course it fits a riot. All of these, in fact, fit the events of January 6th perfectly.
What if you
Perfectly. And if he's
calling me
conceding
gas
that, hey,
chamber?
these fit a riot perfectly, the events of January 6th were a riot under this definition, which he essentially has conceded is true, then the charges were appropriate that this was a riot and not an insurrection. This could not have been an insurrection. His own definition proves that this is more akin to a riot. He still hasn't really told us, by the
They
way,
deserve a
what an
trial.
insurrection is, just these kind of four nebulous points. But these four nebulous points fit a
Physical,
riot
any kind of
perfectly.
physical charges by law
Perfectly.
enforcement
And
is
he's
probably
basically
an
conceded
insurrection.
to three of them on the outset, and then on the second, he's basically
That's why
conceded
you
that
can't
as
find
well.
insurrection.
Because resisting any law or interfering with the course
Resisting
of a
police
government
officer,
proceeding
punching
would fit
police
a
officer,
riot by its
spitting
very
on police
nature.
officer.
The reason it would fit a riot by its very nature is because it's immediately an unlawful assembly. You're resisting the law, you're resisting the police, you're resisting. So whether that's done at a federal level or a state level, I think it would still meet the same fate of being more akin to a riot. This definition really moves towards a riot and not towards an insurrection. He has not told us the distinction yet. And so, again, I think that the entire reason he wants this only painted as an insurrection, even though nobody's ever been charged with an insurrection, even though Trump was cleared of inciting an insurrection, is so that he can make justifications for why the other side deserves what it gets because they're a bunch of traitors. Thus far, no. I'm sorry. This definition nor this logic adds up. The logic of saying, well, just because they weren't charged with a thing doesn't mean it wasn't the thing. Fine, but that doesn't mean it was the thing either. And by your criteria, it seems like it was this other thing.
Okay, that's 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I will make the clock the same for you, Destiny, to keep it fair. I will start the timer if you're ready now.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to loop on these points. Resisting a law is not the same thing as breaking a law. If you could show me that there was a particular riot where people assembled and the goal of that riot was when they were rioting, they wanted to riot to make rioting legal, and that they had gathered, in order to change the law in a particular area, and they were going to use force and intimidation to do it. We're here to riot today because we're going to make rioting legal. Then sure, then we could argue that that's probably an insurrection. But I mean, these are the four elements that were historically understood at the time. Nobody had any issues at the time charging people with crimes of insurrection. Nobody had any confusion at the time historically. There were Shays Rebellions, the Whiskey Insurrection, the Burr Insurrection, John Brown's raids. You had convictions of, like a Pennsylvania farmer, I think, set fire to a house of a tax collector in 1794. He was charged with insurrection. John Freese and friends made a show of arms that resulted in the release of persons charged with federal tax evasion. That was considered an insurrection. In 1847, when Hispanic and Native Americans attacked occupying American officials in New Mexico, that was considered an insurrection. In 1851, when Pennsylvanians obstructed official efforts
There's a lot of history lessons there. I read Howard Zinn after Matt Damon quoted Howard Zinn in that what movie was that? Good Will Hunting, right? Well, I heard he's leftist and stuff. But I'm not at the income level that would be worried about all this stuff that they're worried about. I got to that tax level for a little bit. Yeah, for a few years it got that way. Oh, I only got paid from home. I like the easy 1040. 1040 easy. Well, there's nice spaces where there was like very survivable, and that is with the fortune not having a just snap of the fingers, crippling debt event, medical or otherwise. I'm gonna go read you some insurrection.
He wants to agree to this for the purpose of fairness. I'm willing to do 2 rounds of internal critiques, and I'll allow Destiny to start with an internal critique if I can move to an internal critique after. So 2 5-minute rounds of internal critiques. Does that sound fair?
What do we mean when we say internal critique? What does that mean?
It means that I'm just here to answer your questions for 5 minutes, and you're here to answer mine.
Sure.
Okay, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so okay, just so I make sure I have this right, so I can moderate it properly. Is he going to question you, Andrew, and you're gonna?
Yeah, he gets round 1, 5 minutes, and then I get round 2, 5 minutes.
Okay, so basically, okay, so it's essentially a Q&A between the two of you. Where okay, so our Destiny, if you're okay with that, we can do that, or we can go to just open.
Kylie decided to play a game of Catch Me If You Can with the law. Spoiler, they caught her. Total bond, $7,500. Isaiah thought it'd be a great idea to drink and drive, and then hit and run. Rookie mistake, my friend. Total bond, $1,000. Multiple probation violations and domestic violence charges. Cody seems to be going for the worst boyfriend of the year award. Total bond, $115,000. Arrest report, June 9th or June 16th. The police department had the highest number of arrests with 14, followed closely by the sheriff's office with 13 arrests. The highway patrol made 5 total arrests, 4 by the Division 1 and 1 by Division 2. Division 2 police department made 3 arrests. Division 3 police department and county jail each had 2. Division unqualified. Division unqualified. The semi-pro made 1 arrest. Each made 1 arrest. In total, there were 44 bookings by different arresting agencies in the county during this time period. Douglas is back at it again, this time at Speedway. Some people just never learn. Total bond not listed, probably because they're tired of dealing with him. This guy just couldn't resist, though. There's one before it. This guy just couldn't resist causing a ruckus at Moonlit in South Main. Apparently, alcohol and deadly weapons go hand in hand for Douglas. Total bond, $5,000. Douglas is back yet again, this time with a failure to appear charge at West Minor and Broadway. Someone get this man a calendar. Total bond, not listed. Travis disorderly conduct involving alcohol charge at blank blank Avenue proves that you can take the man out of Auburn, but you can't take the Auburn out of the man. Total bond, $500. What are they arguing about again? Sure, there's a risk and arrest about Carly's disorderly conduct involving alcohol and battery charges. Oh, insurrection. Vape Shop Highway 3 suggests you might have misunderstood the concept of vaping. Total bond, $1,500. How do we get that? Who would have thought?
With the purposes of actual insurrection or some type of 1776 mindset. This is the most armed nation on planet Earth. How in the world can you say these people showed up specifically in order to do that? That makes no sense, man.
None of this law, none of that argumentation was stuck with her. People they obviously showed up to protest the certification of the vote. They were called there by Donald Trump
if
on
it's
January 6th.
a non sequitur, then you in 2021 were using a non sequitur when you made the argument that from the appearance of this, it could not have been an insurrection.
2021 Destiny was incorrect because 2021 Destiny didn't have the historical context to understand an insurrection. If you want to bring him on here and talk to him, you can, but I don't agree with everything that I said. I am 2024 Destiny. I have learned more things, I have done more studying, I have read more papers, and I've done more research on this. There is actually a strong understanding of what an insurrection is, and there was a strong historical understanding. The idea that a bunch of people were called on January 6th, the date wasn't a mistake. When Donald Trump sent them down there to protest, when he said we need Mike Pence to do the right thing, what was he talking about? He wanted him to contravene the law, and that's what people marched down there for them to do.
Donald Trump said 30 minutes before this began that this needed to remain a peaceful protest.
No, he didn't. He
Twitter.
never said that.
He did. I actually
No,
have
he
the
didn't.
tweet. I have the tweet.
He said
He did say that.
in the speech, he
did.
said to fight like hell, and in the speech, he said that we need to go down.
I'm talking about his tweets.
Why
a
would I say?
person
Why
put
is a
out- why
tweet
would a person
dispositive?
put out a tweet to be peaceful if their intent was insurrection, Destiny?
Why would a person call a protest on January 6th? What do you think they were protesting?
What do you mean? They call protest. People call protests all the time. That doesn't mean
We're
that
not
the
talking
purpose
about
of the
other
protest
protests. I'm
is
asking you, what was
insurrection.
the purpose of the protest on January 6th?
The purpose of the protest was to go out and show support for Donald J. Trump.
For what?
Well, there was a variety of reasons.
No,
think that
give me.
many-
Wait. Are you telling me we can't
I'm going to
understand
give
what
you
the
a
January
variety of
6th
reasons.
protest
You
was
can't
about?
say no. Are you saying there wasn't a variety of reasons why people didn't show up?
Nope. I think there was one clear reason.
Oh, there's only one reason why
One
everybody
clear
showed
reason.
up.
Correct.
10 seconds.
Okay, what is the one clear reason? There was not a variety of reasons. Some people didn't show up just because they wanted to see what was happening. Some people didn't show up just to support the president. Some people didn't show up because they really liked to go to protest. Everybody showed up for one reason.
I
right,
didn't say
Destiny?
everybody showed up for one reason. I said they were called there for
We
one reason.
didn't
That was
all
to
show up
protest the
because some of us
certification
were
of the
still
election.
working.
Guys, that is time. I'm happy to let this play out longer if you guys want, and add an extra minute to the clock. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, we can
sure.
add an extra minute. I'm fine with that.
Clock, and this is still round one of the open discourse, but just try to limit it to 1 minute, and then we'll go into round two of it, and we can go from there. And if we need more rounds at the 5 minute mark, we can now do that. So
Yeah, so I have a problem with him ascribing motivation to all. He says there's one clear reason why everybody showed up. That's clearly not true. That doesn't even logically make sense. He could never demonstrate in a million years that there was only one clear reason why everybody showed up. That's a nonsensical argument, Destiny.
That's not the argument that I'm making. If the debate
was the argument you made.
if the debate is whether or not January 6th is an insurrection, not did every single person on January 6th engage in the crime of insurrection, or did every single person on January 6th go with the intent to commit
Then why
an
did you say there was one clear
I
reason
said
why
that there was a
everybody showed
clear
up?
reason why people were called there, because there was. Donald Trump called people there to protest not on January 5th and not on January 7th and not in a random part of D.C. and not in a random part of the country. He called them on January 6th to the ellipses that was less than a mile walk away from the Capitol building, which is where he sent every single person after his speech. He called them there on the day of the certification of the votes
That
after
doesn't tell
spending
us their
days
motivation.
trying to pressure Pence to overturn the election.
That
He
doesn't
told
tell
them
us their
that they need to go and
motivation,
protest for the lawful slates of electors to be counted, the illegitimate ones that he submitted, and people went there.
Even
They
if I grant
engaged
your
in
logic,
violent
it makes no
behavior, and they
sense.
managed to delay the certification of the election, which is
Destiny,
exactly what
even
they.
if
So then, do you admit then that they
No, I
happened
don't
to do
admit
exactly
anything,
what
even if I grant your logic.
they happened to do every single thing that an
Destiny,
insurrection
give me a
called
chance
for
to
without
respond.
actually engaging in an insurrection?
Give me a chance to respond. So I not only do I concede nothing, but your logic.
We ran out of time on that round. So what I'll do is this. I can see that this is a dynamic conversation, and clearly it's going to go out the bounds sometimes of a time round. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and set the clock for 10 minutes. That completes round one of the open discourse. But I see that this is a dynamic argument, and me just stopping it randomly at 5 minutes would probably be stupid. So I'm going to let it play out. I'll put 10 minutes on the clock and have you guys go at it. Is that okay with both of you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Sure.
Destiny, okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I don't want to interrupt you guys again like that. So I'll just go ahead and put 10 minutes on the clock.
Go ahead and put it.
And I will start it right now. You can pick right off where you left off again. Sorry about
So to respond, right, and I'll be more charitable with the time back your way now that we have 10 minutes, Destiny, but it's actually an illogical argument to make, to say, even if Donald Trump had some certain intent in his head, that would not mean that the people who were showing up for the protest had that intent. So the thing is like for both ways, it's a double entendre for your own logic. Either one, you claim, wait a second, there was one clear reason everybody showed up, or two, no, there was no clear reason why everybody showed up. They had multiple motivations, even if Trump himself had a different motivation. This is illogical argumentation.
I'm sorry, but this would never be applied to anything. If somebody says, "Hey guys, we're all going to show up
That's
so that
not
we
an
can
argument
go,"
either.
and I'm making the argument right now. If somebody were to make the call and say, "Hey guys, we're all going to show up to go and blow this building up," and a bunch of people showed up, and then a bunch of them marched with the crowd crowd, and then they all went, and a
Research
building got
is more
blown up,
than does-
we
they
wouldn't say
actually
like,
think
oh, well, we
things
don't know what the
about
intention of the
it.
crowd was. We don't know what the intention of the leader there was. We
Yeah.
don't know what actually happened there because we can't divine the
Researchers
intention
more
of
than
every
does
single
extreme
individual purpose
That's
person.
a
We can
ridiculous
say
straw
we
man.
can say that's you can call it a straw man, but the idea
is.
that in order for me, okay, hold on, what would I need to
No,
show
hang on,
then?
let me
What would I? No,
respond
no,
to
no,
your
no, no,
first
wait, hold on.
argument.
What would I need to
No,
show?
wait,
What would
wait,
I
wait,
need
no,
to
there's no
show?
spurging. Let me
I'm not
respond to the
spurging, but
argument.
you're not even letting
Ask
me
the
talk.
question.
You can respond to my argument. You can
Bro,
phrase the
you
question as
made
part of
an
this.
argument. Let me respond, and then you can ask the second argument. I think that that's fair. So when you're talking about this from a logical standpoint, when you say, oh, if somebody called and said, hey, we're all going to blow this building up, yes, I would agree that you could probably ascribe the motivation to it then. Can you show me a tweet or any type of anything from Donald Trump saying, hey, guys, show up, we're going to do an insurrection? No, he
Yes,
just made
I
this
can.
shit up.
Okay, fine. So I can. So as part of Donald Trump's speech, I'll give you 2 quotes. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And use a favorite term that all you people really came up with. We will stop the steal. Today, I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election. We won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. The first quote. The second quote. We must stop the steal, and then we must ensure that such outrageous election fraud never happens again. Can never be allowed to happen again. When he says stop the steal, when they're at the Capitol building on January 6th, and when the election is being certified, what does stop the steal mean there?
Wait a second. So, first of all, you're attributing to Donald Trump's rhetoric here something which he may not have intended. None of that actually shows or demonstrates that he was calling for an insurrection on the Capitol. You are just kind of ascribing that motivation onto it for the purposes of convenience. You have to show me there where he calls, like your example was, if I say we're all going to show up and blow up this building, that was your example, and then people show up and do it, we can understand their motivation. I agree. You have to show me where he says, okay, guys, we're all going to show up and do an insurrection. You can't then take words that don't say anything about an insurrection and say, but I think he meant that, though.
So then, just before I answer this, what would I have to show you to show that an insurrection was what Trump was planning? What kind of evidence
You would have
would
to
you
give me the criteria first and foremost of something which fit the criteria of an insurrection better than some other thing. And you would have to make it refutable to that thing from what people were charged under. So if the criteria is, I'm going to give you what I think an insurrection is, and it fits a different criteria better than an insurrection, and under that criteria, that's what people were basically charged under, then it sounds like the other thing makes more sense than an insurrection.
So we're going with the argument
totally
that for
seems to
X
track
event
to
to have happened, like some person needs to have been charged with the crime?
No, your logic there is faulty
Then
as
why,
well.
why do you have the second
No,
element
let me
there for
respond.
me proving?
Let me
Well, hold on,
respond.
you can't
So-
just talk for 20 minutes and then as soon as I say one
well, I
sentence,
didn't.
you
You
ramble
can't
for
ask
another 20
me a question
minutes. Okay?
and then move
I
to
can
another
ask you a
question.
question and then ask another question as part of my question. I'm able to do
Yeah,
that.
but I
right?
wasn't even
You
able
gave
to respond.
2 elements to what I needed to prove. The second one was that I have to show why people weren't charged with a crime. I've answered this thing.
I have 0 viewers. 0 views. Dash word, average duration, time, average view duration. I just, my backwoods are just, they're not rolled right or dry, I don't know. They're having a steady brand these days. It's backwards. I mean, when I get homeless, I guess I'll go get my food stamps. I think I do a pretty good job of not revealing people's identities and ethics these day and age. Have you seen your bangs? Have you seen your dummies? The ones getting out of prison? They can come hang out. You know how Andrew gets angry sometimes? People mock Andrew? Go ahead and mock. So, we Daniel the Lions. Yeah, I think I make excellent looking terrorist. Now listen to you guys who went to the language school. I pray for them. I pray for them. Because they were learning about the cultural language where we were going, learn how to live like them. And I'm like, hey, why don't we turn themselves into like cult leader? You go to this cult leader school. And the thing they don't tell you in the movie version of the Minister Ghost, or maybe they do. Maybe they do. Maybe it's in the book and the movie. It's just a side note. Well, the major who has the peaceful budget, and just citizen pass size, just non-lethal weapon. The whole non-lethal weapon. They say he rules like one of these, like half of Hawaii, like a warlord. Warlord. But I don't insist on titles or anything, but warlord. If you don't got a government and you need like men to keep the peace, oh yeah, these are your new soldier policemen. They work for the warlord up the hill, and the warlord likes it quiet. Who are these men? Well, they used to play basketball here about 20 years ago. You don't remember? You don't remember? They're hometown kids. And asking around, and they say, yeah, they played basketball here 20 years ago. The high school. Look, the rest of the team's showing up. They slowly drifted in. No, it's not a goosebumps tale. It's not a Stein. What's his name? R.L. Stein or something. Anyway, not one of those. Although you chalk it like a phantom thing, but it's more like all the recruiters are coming and they're going to be watching the star, the person who puts the most stats. Well, that's going to break a leg, man. No, yeah, it's like what the corporate rules. I should put the thing back on how backwards. You know, it's really the only one I remember. Did we use Signal or that's the big thing. Like what encrypted apps have we been using? I don't know. Yeah, we bounce back and forth, and I guess once you already give your information over to disgruntled Microsoft IT help desk worker, what's the point of trying to like just try to hide from them? Why? Do you remember the James O'Keefe how they were like these hidden cameraing and the guy, yeah, we read through the email because he was like all political, right? Oh man, they're censoring our political speech. Yeah, it's like okay, well, what's not political speech? Like send your nude pics back and forth between. Oh yes, yes, Mr. James. Yes, Mr. Jim. We do in fact read your text messages. We are waiting for your company to send over the patch, which makes it a second tier security issue that only with the rest. So right now we can just see all your chats and what's a nice oh you shave. Oh Jim, you shave. Oh, Steph will be so happy.
Well, I don't know, Destiny. Were the DC cops local?
I'll put the clock for
The
5
DC cops were federal.
No, all of them were federal, eh?
The District of Columbia is federal. Yes,
so they
it's
have
federal.
they have no state police there at all?
What state police would they have there?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
I don't believe so. No, I'm pretty sure even the National Guard there directly, like the chain of command goes up to the president, not a state
Do
governor.
states have state governments?
Yes.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
well, I don't understand why you couldn't have an insurrection against a state government by
You
this
should
definition.
consult the historical record and come with an example next time.
Well, just because you never have one, I'm asking you if you can.
I'm not here to debate whether or not you can have an insurrection against a state government. I'm here to
Well,
debate
I
whether or
don't
not January
understand
6th was
that
an
your
insurrection
definition
because
doesn't
January
include
6th.
federal.
No, this is like asking if a murder occurred on January 6th. In that case, I would only be talking about murder as it's defined in federal law, not in state law. We're talking about an insurrection on whether or not January 6th was an insurrection or not. So I'm only going to be appealing to federal law or federal historical understandings of an insurrection against the United States. So I don't know why we're saying, well, what about a state insurrection? I don't know. I'm not even aware if a state insurrection is a possible thing. I've never heard of that reference before. It's not semantic. It's legal and it's historical, and that's where the understanding is
No,
rooted
I'm fine with a semantic distinction. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm actually just trying to make one. So you agree that you gave me a definition that nowhere includes the word federal, correct?
All these bankrupt
I
municipalities.
also didn't give you a definition that includes the word human,
How
or that
many
includes
are
the
there?
words like in this present point of time and not like in the future or time traveling in the past, or that doesn't include
Bye,
like
Jim,
dimension
bye.
C138, or that like there's a million other things
So
that I
what?
didn't include
Yeah,
because
I don't know what that has to do with
The
it.
name of
because
the
why would I
bank
include the
is
definition of
worthy
against the
to
United
be
States when we're
memory
talking
of
about
your
an insurrection that happened on
heartfelt
federal
movie.
grounds?
It's a
Because
wonderful
that's-
life.
well, because
If you
because
want,
your
I could. If
definition
you
of
want, I could
insurrection
simply
matters.
add. Okay, well in that case, I will simply add on
Don't
my second
worry,
part.
Aren't you
Everybody-
appealing to a state court, for
Pass
instance?
over
Like, what are
to
you
a dead
talking
into a
about
court
here?
plot.
Appealing to a state court for what?
There's one in Potter's
Aren't you appealing to a state court for this definition? Isn't that what you said? Did I get that wrong?
I'm appealing to right now. I'm appealing to federal history. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm asking, where did you get this definition? Let's start with that.
There's a writer who studied. I think it was constitutional law, specializing in the 14th Amendment. His name is Mark Graber, and these are the 4 qualifications that he basically lists out, and then he goes through a number of historical examples to say as much. There's also a much longer paper written about the, I think it's like the sweeping power of Section 3, written by, I think, Baud and Paulson, who write like a 130-page paper where they go through listing like the historical understanding of insurrection. If you want, we can dive through any part of the paper, or we can dive through any part of the definition.
Does he say in this paper that it's a requirement that this be done at the federal level?
I don't think anybody talks about state insurrections. I don't think you can levy war or engage in insurrection against a state. I'm just not aware of that. I've never heard of that brought up before.
Yeah,
Like I
but
don't
I'm
think,
just-
like
I'm
for
just
instance,
asking.
like when you say treason, if I were to give you a definition of treason, I don't know if you can commit treason against like the state of Iowa. I think that's only a federal crime.
I have no idea either. That's why I'm asking.
I can't say I can't say for sure because maybe there is evidence of it out there, but I didn't come
Yeah, I don't
prepared
know.
to
I
debate that because it's a debate about a federal
Well,
insurrection
all
on
I'm
January
doing
6th.
is doing an internal critique to try to figure out if this is consistent across the board, your definition. I'm not even saying that there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but what I am saying is that there's something wrong with the fact that it seems to fit rioting far better than it would in insurrection. So if we go over these one at a time, an assemblage would fit a riot. That's what Destiny says. By force or intimidation fits a riot. That's what Destiny says.
Well,
Or
it's
for
an assemblage
public
of people
purposes,
an
that's what-
assemblage of people for a common purpose. Okay,
Yeah.
an assemblage of people. Yes.
Mhm.
So
Riot.
they've come for a common purpose. Okay, and then 2
Okay.
is to resist any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Right, resisting
yeah,
a
or
law.
resist, yeah.
Resisting a law. That's not just breaking a law, but you're there to resist a particular law. There's one you really don't like, and then 3, you're showing up
Yeah,
for force
but
or
wait,
intimidation.
We have the or there. We have the or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Wouldn't that be even resisting police? Wouldn't that qualify for that?
No, a government proceeding would be like the Senate confirming like an officer of the executive agency, or like
You
a
would have to
confirmation of the Supreme-
demonstrate that. I don't believe that that's true. I think that you can interfere with government proceedings, even absent there being some actual proceeding that you're interfering with. I think that
Well, if you would
this
like
could
to
be done with
introduce-
just localized laws.
That's fine, and if you would like to introduce your own unique definition of insurrection, you can do
Why would
that.
I
but
need to
I'm
do that? We
because
have
I'm
yours.
unaware in the historical record of anybody suggesting that interfering with police officers is a matter of insurrection or can lead to an element of insurrection.
Are
not
there
aware of
laws
it.
against rioting?
I don't know if I'm not sure. I know there's laws against like things that happen in rioting. I don't know if there's like
Yeah.
a law of rioting.
Are you resisting those laws when you're rioting?
No.
You're not resisting those laws when you're
No,
rioting.
unless you're literally rioting to say we should make rioting legal or we need to get rid of the prohibition on rioting.
And that is
Wait, why would that be a qualification to resist the laws?
Because
Destiny?
breaking the law and do you acknowledge that breaking the law and resisting the law are not the same
Well,
thing?
tell me what the distinction is so I'm not confused anymore.
Breaking a law is when you do something that's illegal, and resisting the law is saying that this particular law shouldn't exist.
Yeah, okay, but if you're rioting, how do you go about resisting? A law.
Well, you could riot for the purpose of overturning a particular law. You might say,
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you're
like
resisting other laws then, right?
No, you're not. You're not saying that rioting should be made legal.
Yeah, but even if you weren't, you would still be resisting laws that were on the books against rioting.
So if I can't divorce, okay, we can just disagree here. If you think that resisting and breaking the law are the same thing, we're at an impasse.
I didn't say that they're the same thing. I said that necessarily, if you're rioting to resist some other external law. So let's say I
You
think
can
that
hold
there's
on. Do
some-
you agree?
I
We can do
think
this
I-
really
let's
easy.
say-
Do you agree that you
hang
can
on,
engage in
bro.
rioting? No. Do you agree that you can engage in rioting and accept that you might get arrested for rioting?
Yeah.
Then that defeats your entire argument. You can engage in rioting without resisting the law of rioting, understanding that, well, I'm going to riot, but I might be arrested
Actually,
for
that
it.
makes my argument. That makes my argument. So the thing is that even if I concede that it's true, that you could be, rioting with the expectation that you get arrested for this X thing, right? You could do this for murder as well. You could do this for basically anything. You could commit any crime with the expectation that you could be arrested for the crime itself. But that would not say that you're not resisting whatever the current laws were that were on the books about that crime. You're saying that the necessity here is that you are resisting some other thing. Fine, but you're also resisting laws by the very nature of rioting. So I don't know why you would have to have something which is externalized while you yourself are still breaking laws. I don't
How
think...
are you resisting the law? How are you resisting laws of rioting by rioting? What does resist mean to you, then? How are you defining resist?
Yeah. So assuming, I can give you an example of this. Let us assume for a second that people are rioting in an abortion clinic because they want abortion overturned. I think this is the spirit of your argument, right?
Yep.
So they're rioting in an abortion clinic. They want abortion to be overturned. You would agree with me then that they are pushing against abortion, but they're still breaking laws while they're rioting, right? So they are resisting current laws, even though they're resisting another current law. And I don't think that you would consider that to be an insurrection, even though it could fit all of the criteria of these elements. It's an assemblage, for sure. You're resisting some other law that you don't like, or you're interfering with the course of a government proceeding. You would say that that fits criteria too. You would say that this is by force. Or intimidation, and you would say it's for a public purpose. But that clearly is not an insurrection, Destiny.
The issue is that, like, abortion is not like this isn't a federal law. I could just grant you that. We can move to the state example since you seem unable or unwilling to differentiate.
Let's assume for a second that it
law.
was. Let's assume for a second it was a federal law.
Okay, you know what? Actually, we can do that. Let's say that the federal government passed a law either allowing or not allowing all abortion. Okay, the government either allows it, everybody can have an abortion whenever they want, or nobody can have an abortion. Okay, let's say that I gather a group of people and I say, listen, okay, fuck this abortion law. We're all going to get together and we're going to go protest. Okay, and we're protesting. The goal of our protest, all right, is we want to get rid of the abortion thing, whether it was passed or made illegal. Okay, we want to get rid of this law, and we're gonna show up with a whole bunch of fucking people, and shit's gonna get ratty, and we're gonna, we know what we're doing. Okay, it's the day that in Capitol Hill that they're gonna sign the law into whatever. We march down there, and in the course of protesting, like it becomes a riot, and the riot and everything there was because of that particular law being signed into practice. I would say, yeah, that was an insurrection. You've shown up with a group of people. You're resisting the passage of some particular law. You're showing up through force or intimidation, and you end up exercising that, and then it's for the public purpose of a particular law that impacts everybody in the United States. I would say that is an insurrection, yes. Would you say it's not? Would you say that that's not an insurrection?
Yeah, I would say that it would not be an insurrection, at least by this criteria. That would just seem to me, again, to be a riot. That would seem to fit the criteria, again, of a riot better than an insurrection. I still can't exactly figure out the delineation point, and I'm trying to. And now, to be fair to you, it is nebulous. I understand it's nebulous. But I'm also not the one who's making the affirmative claim. You are. So you're saying that if a bunch of fucking dope-smoking hippies wanted to resist the federal law of being able to smoke marijuana on federal land, and they all showed up and they got stoned, and then they started rioting, that would be a fucking insurrection?
If they went there with a common purpose, they were trying to resist the implementation or execution of a particular law, yeah, theoretically it could.
Well, no, they're just resisting, right? They're just resisting the law. They're saying, we're here to protest the fact, man, that we can't smoke weed on federal property, man. So they all grab their blunts and they start toking up in protest, right? And then they start a fire.
What do you have?
I need kick some stuff. And kick some stuff.
Do you think that
is that? Hang on, I just want to make sure. You think
it could be yes?
That would
yes.
be an
The
insurrection.
historical record, it could be yes. Do you have any definition of insurrection whatsoever, or do you just think
Don't need to give you a counter definition.
If you're not going to give me a counter definition, I can give you the riot definition doesn't include necessarily a public purpose. I've already given examples of riots that wouldn't fit my definition of insurrection, and I really only need to give one, and I automatically win. A riot could very much be in response to a particular sports team winning a game. Boom. That's an example of a riot. It doesn't fit my definition of insurrection. I've differentiated the two, and unless you're going to give me any countervailing definitions, I automatically satisfy that element of my claim, and then
interfering with the course of a government proceeding in and of itself. I think that the necessity of rioting in and of itself. What if you blockade a federal highway?
Wait, the necessity of rioting in and of itself. Wait, what? No, hold on, wait. To be clear, do you acknowledge that I just gave you? Do you acknowledge that I just gave you an example of a riot that wouldn't be an insurrection under my definitions?
So I think that would even be appropriate. I think that you could give me tons of definitions of riots that would not fit this definition of an insurrection.
Okay.
But that would not mean that this definition doesn't fit the definition of riot better than insurrection. You understand?
Wait, so if somebody was protesting and it got really violent after a sports game, how would my definition fit that better than insurrection fit that better than
what if they were blockading a federal highway? Would that be interfering with the course of government proceedings because there's a federal law that says you can't blockade byways on federal highways? I mean, this is the thing.
I don't know. I don't think that counts as like a proceeding.
Do you see what I mean, though? This becomes so broad that we can begin to just add all sorts of things and call them insurrections.
What is the government proceeding?
So, let me give you an example. So if we're going to be totally good faith here, right, which I've been trying to be this entire debate, and I think you would concede that, if we're going to be really good faith here, do you really believe that if a bunch of hippies showed up to smoke a bunch of dope on federal property, okay, and a few of them got wild and started a fire and kicked some shit, right, and fucking, I don't know, somebody got beat up with a bat because there was tens of thousands of them who showed up for that protest, do you really believe that that would fit the criteria of what most people think of, including you, as an insurrection?
If they didn't go there united by like a particular public purpose,
the public purpose was they were going against this federal law. They don't want the federal law. They're resisting that federal law. Just so that we
don't have to waste any more time on this. If you want to stack this enough, all I'm going to end up doing is saying that, like, yes, this would agree as I would agree that this would be an insurrection. You have it. You're not able to demonstrate. This is why I'm asking you, like, historically, can you give me an example of an event that you don't think I would want to classify as an insurrection?
I don't
that would
think
classify
I need to,
as an insurrection. But if you're
so
just going to give me
so
examples, where you're just going to
you're
going to build these events more and more and say, well, would that be an insurrection? I'll say, like, yeah, I would say that was an insurrection. Sure.
Nobody in good faith anywhere is going to
Waiting for the start as soon as I start talking. So the name on this account is my secret agent name. Hmm. I was living with a woman. I really was. I know you're running the spectral analysis and be like demographics and things like this. Has never been a relationship. He's one of those. Who would be it? And it's like, man, I was living with a woman once. She's fine. Facebook she posted. Cause you know
Agree
how
with
like you
you
follow
that if
people's
a bunch of
Facebook posts?
hippies showed up to resist the
Like what
marijuana
your
law on
secret
federal
agent name is.
property, and then a few of them started a riot, that they would consider
Which
that
is really
insurrection
cool.
against the United
Because I
States?
like
I
Rudolph
don't
Hess.
believe you believe it. I don't believe your audience believes it. I don't believe anybody
Remember
believes
Rudolph
it.
Hess?
So if
The
that is the
Vietnam
case,
command,
that it's so broad that that
the
will
rice
encapsulate
fielder.
that, I'm actually fine leaving
That
the
was him,
debate
the
there too.
deputy fielder.
Okay. I mean, again, it doesn't really
The
matter
deputy
what we
fielder,
would
actually.
consider to be an insurrection. The only thing that really matters is what the historical record says is at the time was considered an insurrection. And
Yeah, well, I don't
again,
know,
I literally
because
think
nobody's prosecuting anybody for it, so.
you don't have to. Well, you're just retreading. Technically, I think this might be a gish gallows when you keep bringing up arguments that have been rebuked over and over and over again.
I don't
You
think
can
it
keep
was
bringing it
gish
up over and over and over again, but again, we agree that like we can walk in and see, wow, this person was murdered, and go, oh, really? Who?
It's the Shishka's man cow. Well, actual junk defense.
Who's charged with murder? Okay, fuck. Or wow, there sure is a riot here. We saw that a riot happened. Well, who was charged with rioting? Well, fuck, I guess. Like you don't need a charge of a particular crime, and the barrier or the bar for charging somebody with a particular crime is probably a lot higher than declaring an event a thing itself. It just doesn't make any sense to say because somebody hasn't been charged with a particular thing, a certain
also
event
doesn't
didn't
make any
exist.
sense to say
We're
that
not talking
just
about criminal
because-
charges.
It also doesn't make any sense that to say that because they haven't been charged with a particular thing, that means they're guilty of the particular thing either.
I'm
That's
not.
the flaw in
That's
that
my
argument. I've pointed it
criteria.
out multiple
My
times.
criteria
Your
is not.
doesn't
So I have just take it upon myself to do social analysis and an analyst, like an analyst, policy analyst, trend analyst, an analyst. And Dan Carlin posed the question on hardcore history after, well, I don't know which one it was, the account of these great and glorious wars of men with strength beyond compared to our modern physiques and habits in just heavy iron, bodies being pulled to the bottom of the sea, ships on fire. Can it all really be over a woman? Well, in some analysis I find very interesting about the stability of society and likely of it being, well, the less you hear of it, the more it must be at peace, right? Well, anyway. The phenomenon of polygamous communities to thrive so long as there is a vast land for which to send their young men out to find their three wives. Or one wife. Because when one man in a polygamous society has four wives, that's three men who will be without a wife. And in those ratios maintained for over duration of, well, I don't know the time frames, but I can see how it would be quite destabilizing once the young men found out they, well, like I said, as long as there's a vast field of potential and cities and conquest, and as long as there's single women in the other kingdom for your polygamous children to go uh, create their society there. But this really isn't spoken about much in the Plutarch that I've seen. Now, divorces, yes. Greek society and Roman society and polygamy, I don't know. However, I know there's an entitled Jew boy prince who, well, of course he's allowed to keep a goyim side chick. Anybody of this class gets they of course they get their side chick, they get their mistress. So man, this is important. Well, in nuclear reactions, 100 men and 100 women, one of those, one of those nuclei over there, those nuclears grab an extra proton. See, I probably got made fun of by my fellow physicists to be like, protons are male. Yeah, neutrons know. Oh wait, I don't know. I'm too Delta 9 gummies high. Thanks, John. Do you remember a long time ago there was a man called Cotton Eye Joe? There was a man called Cotton Eye Joe. I could have been married a long time ago. If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, if it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, old Bull Phil and a shoestring bow wouldn't play nothing but Cotton Eye Joe. Wouldn't play nothing but Cotton Eye Joe. Play it fast or play it slow. Didn't play nothing but Cotton Eye Joe. Didn't play nothing but Cotton Eye Joe. Don't you remember a long time ago, Daddy worked a man called Cotton Eye Joe? Daddy worked a man called Cotton Eye Joe. Where do you come from? Where do you go? Where do you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Where do you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Come for to see, for to sing. Come for to show you my diamond ring. Come for to show you my diamond ring. Huh.
Feel like wasn't fairly prosecuted is the same as a bunch of people showing up to resist the certification of the vote as laid out in the Electoral Count Act is just not at all the same thing. But we can continue to misread the second element of this, and I understand why. And that's because if you grant the definition or any definition of insurrection, January 6th almost certainly follows from it. And the only way to escape January 6th as being labeled as an insurrection is to use either a ridiculous type of definition that literally nobody historically has ever agreed to. And again, you will never find historical citations, people that use these very unique and contrived definitions of insurrection, or you set the bar of evidence as being unbelievably high, which is saying something like Donald Trump needed to say, hey, everybody, we're going to go do an insurrection. And absent that, even if he's telling people to fight like hell, even if he's tweeting the day before, Vice President Pence has the ability to overturn the election. Even if he's saying, like, we need to go down in March and fight like hell and take our country back, none of these things are going to matter if they don't actually use the word insurrection, which I guess means there's no such thing as an insurrection ever having occurred in all of U.S. history. I would say that if you argue with somebody who doesn't believe in a particular definition of insurrection, ask them, has any insurrection ever occurred ever? Which would you consider an insurrection? And then once they start to consider something as an insurrection, say, hey, well, what are the elements that make this an insurrection? Or even more, you could say, historically, what have judges and lawmakers considered an insurrection? People like Andrew will never do that. Instead, they will just play word games all day and try to say, well, riots fit, and what about states, and all these other things that aren't really relevant to defining an insurrection, which, however you define it, January 6th clearly was.
All right. Okay. That was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I will turn it to you, Andrew, to make your closing arguments. And then, Andrew, from what I understand, you wanted to open up the phone lines, right, and have a discussion with the people after?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Even if Destiny has other places to go, I'm willing to stick around for call-ins. I've always done that on the Crucible.
Sure.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's people.
Right now, as we speak, Bills is firing up the phone line, so we'll get that phone number out and put it on the screen, and you guys can, Destiny, if you want to stay, you can telegraph it to your audience, and we can answer some questions for the people. But I will turn it to you, Andrew, to make your closing arguments.
Yeah, well, it's really funny, this appeal to authority. Destiny grabs this entire nebulous definition from some guy that he respects on the internet and then claims that this is some authoritative definition. This is the authoritative definition because I read it from some guy on the internet. Oh, okay, great. Even though the courts themselves have not ruled on this, and nobody was charged with insurrection. Nobody was charged. Again, one more time, nobody charged with insurrection. Trump acquitted of inciting an insurrection, which again, nobody was charged with. Talk about nebulous definition. He says, I'm playing word games. Meanwhile, he takes time today, all day, to assemble a 4-point, kind of, this is my definition, completely based on some other guy on the internet, which is crazy to me, right? This is Destiny's personal definition. Personal definition of what this means. And it clearly fits 3 of the criteria for rioting right off the gate. We only had an issue with 2. And then when we apply these, and remember my opening statement, I said in my opening statement, this is going to become very broad, right? There's no way that we're not going to be able to call all sorts of things insurrections that clearly are not insurrections. We come up with the idea of what if a bunch of dope smoking hippies all show up with the united purpose of smoking dope on federal land in order to resist the federal law. And then a couple of them start a fire and one gets beaten up with a baseball bat or something like this. Suddenly that's an insurrection. Clearly, nobody would think that that was an insurrection. Clearly, nobody would think that that's a completely unreasonable standard, right? But it's the Destiny standard. And the reason, again, that he had to have such a broad definition, the reason that he needed this, and he needed me to come in and give him some definition he could do an internal critique on, is because his idea that this was an insurrection is only there specifically to villainize the opposition for the purposes of demonization, so that when bad things happen to them, he can call them traitors. That's it. That's the whole game. It's been his whole game now for a while. And this is what got him on Pierce and all these other things, which I recently reviewed, was that take. And so in order for him to justify that take, he has to make you a traitor because you don't believe that that was an insurrection that nobody was charged with.
Okay, 2:15. Guys, that was fucking fantastic discussion. Obviously, people are going to have different viewpoints on where they go, but that's, I think, the beauty of any discussion like this in debate, that it, good debate always has people with different viewpoints saying like, oh, I think this guy did better, I think this guy did better. So great discussion from both. I am going to open up the phone lines right now. I think the number is going to be Block Talk, Bells.
Yeah.
So guys, the number is going to be 515-605-9740.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, I still remember, yeah. But yeah, so that is going to be the phone number, guys, to call into the show. You can interact with us, whether it's me, Destiny, or Andrew.
Start your show now. Press 1 to hear.
Your show is scheduled to start in 33 seconds.
And you just, and Andrew, how do you normally run this? 505-605-9740. That's the number to call in, guys. Again, that number.
Just to, usually just whoever calls in, they have a single question. You answer the question. Then move on to the next caller, maybe like a 30-second, very quick back and forth so you can get to as many callers as possible.
Yeah.
Usually that's how I do it.
Okay, no, that's cool, because we're going to
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Okay, so guys, the number to call in is 505-605-9740. Again, that number is 515-605-9740. We're manning the phone lines here at Fresh and Fit. So if you call in, if you super chat, we'll go ahead and put you at the top of the list, get you in there faster. As usual, super chat with the last 4 digits of your number. And I think we just opened up the lines. Okay, so do we have anyone on now? I know we literally just opened them, but.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so as usual, guys, normal rules. If you want to skip the line, super chat the last 4 digits of your numbers in, and we will go ahead.
It was then the 2 men entered. And now the first valley left by his voice so believed she was able to identify when Elizabeth forced her the previous evening. The one who had asked that her behind be made more.
To get you on the line. Let's go ahead and hit the first caller here.
We got 6327. You're up. 6327. You're up.
Go ahead, 6327. And I'm going to be hosting a Zoom call after this, guys. Andrew, if you don't mind, drop it in on Castle Club after this.
Of course.
Awesome.
At your service. Thank you so much for hosting this, and you guys coming in on your day off is very kind to be.
Too, if you want to jump in and talk to my.
Hey, you guys ready for me?
But yeah, go ahead. But we'll do calls for a bit, and then we'll switch on over to Castle Club. And I appreciate you guys doing that for me. If you guys.
Sorry about the connection to the shared streaming. why somebody viewed me for a minute. I've noticed I got a lot of recommendations for like, oh my goodness, you see all the old dudes just like no professionalism, just talking and making out. So many stuttering John. So many stuttering John. Howard, what'd you do, Howard? Tomorrow at the gas lamp for a sign. Gas lamp. Man, Mike. Man, you live in San Diego, don't you, Mike? Remember when there was like those guys would be like just randomly punched? There was like, what year was that? I think it might have been like right around that time I was there. Just like guys sit around, those like, and then boom, you get the head crunched in the concrete. Really good times, weren't they? Anyway, enjoy Comic Con tomorrow.
Be illegal. It's a crime. You can't kill people.
Okay, that's fine. So let's just take
Just to
away
be clear,
murder.
I don't think assassinations are allowed in any country. I think they're usually not okay. But
Okay, hold on. I just want to ask: do you think it's okay to just stop them? Just stop them from taking office? Like just like physically force them, prevent them from taking office?
I mean, I'm trying to follow this. Maybe it could be, but what do you mean? You mean is it okay to physically stop Trump from taking
Like if
office?
a bunch of people pull, like if a bunch of people pulled up and just like forcibly, physically, would say like we're not going to allow you to be president because we think you're going to be awful. Do you think it's okay to do that?
Yeah, that would be criminal. Yeah, you can't do that. No.
So there was a story I heard Tom Hartman say, or maybe somebody else.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem, man. We'll move on to the next caller. Again, 515-605-9740. Super chat, last four digits of your number to cut the line. Go ahead, Mo.
3990. You are up.
Go ahead, 3990.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Let me try that on my OBS dashboard. Okay, I guess video output is currently hard. Please turn output to change video settings.
Yes.
Okay, Andrew, I have a question. Can you define me a chair?
Is rioting.
I agree that riots exist. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you agree that you and I could likely agree on what a riot is?
I don't know. You don't want to give definitions for anything.
Well, I mean, if I gave you examples, do you think we could agree? Like, if I showed BLM footage of their riots, do you think that you would agree that those were riots?
No, I would ask you very specifically: was anybody charged with a riot? And if they weren't, then I would say that by your earlier definitions of insurrection, these must not have been riots.
You
because
mean
you can't show
I
me
didn't-
somebody
wait,
charged with
wait,
the
what
crime of
definitions
rioting?
did I give you of insurrection?
You made it sound like a necessary element of an insurrection having occurred was an individual being charged with the crime of insurrection. You repeated this like 20 times.
That never happened.
Then why did you bring that up over and over and over again?
Because, well, no. So you're conflating two different ideas. So idea one is nobody was charged with an insurrection, which means the powers that be also, when they saw this under their purview, probably didn't think that it fit the criteria for whatever an insurrection's going to be. And so we have to untangle this idea, and then we move on to idea two, which is your definition may fit something else better than it fits actual insurrection.
Okay. Then you'd have to show me for a particular BLM riot that somebody was charged with the crime of rioting. And if they weren't charged with that, and they were charged with something else, I'd say, oh, people probably didn't think there was a riot. They just felt like a couple people.
For me, how this was actually an insurrection.
I already did. I laid out four necessary elements, that things that wouldn't encompass a riot. And
Okay, well, I would say that Chaz and Chop was like open rebellion or insurrection.
Okay,
Would
and then I would ask you. I would ask
you.
you no, because I would ask you for a single historical example, either judicially, legally, or through any kind of like historical writing, where they.
No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA, no Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. Yeah. Would history have been different without Billy Joel Anderson, or whatever his name is, leading the rebellion? No, yes, he's destiny is Spartacus.
Platforms, as you guys know, obviously go check out Destiny, go check out Andrew Wilson on their respective YouTube channels. They're streaming as well. This is multi-stream between all the different platforms. I think between all of us guys, we got like 50,000 plus, around 30 to 50,000 watching us. And what I'll do is I'll send a Zoom link to all the Castle Club members, and we'll answer questions exclusively with the Castle Club members. And I appreciate you guys doing that for me. But we'll answer a few more phone calls for guys that are just watching the show regularly. But we'll stay on, but we'll answer questions from Castle Club members only. But we'll do that in a bit after we answer some.
He has a look of the guy in the smartest man in the room, the Enron thing. And, there's a big complaint that it's only the Christians. Like, that was a big thing about their investment firm. It was just like a really I don't know what Jen Lay actually went to church or not. However, they're like the good old, and they got this Jew guy in there. The Jew guy came up with some math that starts selling these, make us money? Guess it will. You know who didn't go to prison? Like that guy. But it was your plan. Yeah, would have worked.
It was interfering with were the various court cases related to police brutality. So
Okay,
in
so
that
that's
case,
more of a common.
does BLM meet the criteria of an insurrection?
You wouldn't. I wouldn't define like an entirety of a summer of protests or riots or insurrections as like a particular insurrection. Also, I don't think that I'll ignore the federal state distinction for now. What?
One entity.
Sure, but like if we look
consistently as BLM through the whole summer.
Do what? Say that again.
And they profess themselves in favor of a certain type of outcome in various court cases relating to police brutality, and demanded forcefully with intimidation that the government bend to what they wanted the outcome to be. How does this not make BLM an insurrection?
It's if you can, you might there. My guess is going to be that if we went through every single like BLM riot, that we could probably find some that I would say might meet my definition. If we ignore the state-federal distinction, we might find some that meet my definition of insurrection.
And that Trump is a bad president because he led an insurrection, then Kamala Harris directly provided aid and support to insurrection. So wouldn't this also make Kamala Harris an insurrectionist?
No, because I don't think any court has reviewed any of that behavior and found any of it to be an insurrection, number one. And number two, I don't believe that providing bail money is considered part of aiding and abetting.
Whoa. No court has said that this is an insurrection either.
That's not true. The Colorado State Supreme Court did.
Why wasn't anybody charged then, Destiny, with insurrection?
Because it wasn't reviewing, because the court wasn't reviewing it for a criminal proceeding. It was the Colorado State Supreme Court. They don't have the authority or jurisdiction to hear
and
a
what has
federal
the Supreme Court
case.
said?
The Supreme Court said that they didn't really want to deal with it, so they basically axed it.
Right, so we're just operating off of your definition. Under your definition, he's meeting the criteria for these being insurrections because he's saying that this is now federal, that these are impeding and resisting federal laws at this point. And so if that is the case, you would have to concede.
The federal laws. That's just, you haven't demonstrated that. The federal execution of what law?
Well, wait a second. Weren't they resisting the federal laws of how police are able to deal with suspects and things like this?
Were they? Were
that
they
what
saying,
police reform was?
Was a federal law? That's not none of that is federal. But I don't think you understand.
I mean, that's what the caller's saying, though.
No, it sounded like he was saying they were protesting particular court outcomes. That's the judicial system, not the legislative system. So I understand that government is confusing, but these are two totally different things. I don't know if you can have an insurrection protesting court decisions. I'm not aware of that ever being the case. If you can engage in insurrection or rebellion against a court decision, I'm not aware of that.
All right. We will go on to the next caller. Who's up next? And we'll take a few more of these guys. Then I'm going to drop a link in Castle Club for Castle Club members to come in and ask these questions.
7579, you are up. 7579, you are up.
Go ahead, brother.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all hear me?
Got you.
Hey, I got a question for Destiny, and I think Andrew can pick up off afterwards. So, based off of your 4 points that you gave for what would make an insurrection, technically, none of your points make it necessary for there to be violence. You say in point 3, force or intimidation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be violent. So, based off of that, wouldn't any legal protest where you're advocating for a certain political cause or anything like that in a public space, wouldn't that also, by your definition, count as an insurrection?
No, because I think that the intimidation part is important. The quote that I borrowed from here was from Justice Marshall in 1807. He said, quote, "The most comprehensive definition of levying war against the king or against the United States, which I have seen, requires an assemblage of men ready to act and with an intent to do some treasonable act, and armed in warlike manner, or else assembled in such numbers as to supersede the necessity of arms." So I don't think you necessarily have to engage in violence, but I think that having the people there with the purpose of like intimidation and being ready to act with violence, I think is easily enough to satisfy element
No
3.
justice, no justice, no peace.
You would have to point to a particular thing that like
Yeah,
what are they?
On On 2 June, however, the so-called 19 propositions presented to the king, who is now in the north at Royal York, did provide some indication, at least, of what him and his associates believed should be fought over. Edmund Ludlow later called them the principal foundations of the ensuing war. Charles, however, described the propositions when he read them as a mockery and a scorn, a judgment which was indeed hard to refute by the standards of monarchical authority in reigns gone by. An indignity, he said, had been offered to him in the delivery of them. Some clauses were extremely personal. The king's children were to be educated by and married to those of whom Parliament approved. Some were religious. The king should accept the reforms of the church advised by Parliament. Laws against Catholics should be carried out strictly. Catholic peers disqualified from sitting in the House of Lords. Some were political, and the privy councillors, the great officers of state, should be appointed with Parliament's approval. Some concerned defence, governors of fortifications would be appointed with Parliament's approval, and the king was assigned the militia ordinance. In reply, Charles actually showed a shift to a position of mixed monarchy, which would have shocked his father. But officially, he took his stance once more on the past and the law. Nolumus leges Anglia matari. We will not have the laws of England changed. His answer specifically condemned the intoxication which sweeping new powers should bring first to the commons, and ultimately to the people themselves, the possible consequences of anarchy. Better far was the ancient equal happy little poison never enough commended constitution of the government of this kingdom. Action often eliminates the need for reflection as well as the opportunity. It was action which occupied Oliver Cromwell during the late spring of 1642. How many committees claimed him? How many official messages were borne by him from the House of Commons to the House of Lords? His heavy, untidily dressed figure, with its shambling gait, moved purposefully about Parliament's business, became a familiar aspect of the scene at Westminster. Portion of this activity was concerned with the progress of the adventurers, for in Ireland the suppression of the rebels was proving lengthy and expensive. Other activities concerned more directly the preparations for a conflict in England, symbolized by Parliament's proclamation raising a militia and placing the resultant forces under its own control. In June and July, the pace did not slacken. Among other duties, Oliver Cromwell sat on the committee set up to consider answers from the king to the 19 propositions. He was one of those to confer with the lieutenant of the Tower of London concerning its safety, and was appointed to confer with the lords on the question of the Lord Mayor of London. The subversive Sir Richard Gurney. Once again, he took part in a number of conferences and committees with the aim of sending more money and troops to Ireland. On 1 August, the commissioners for Irish affairs resolved that 4 of their number, with Cromwell's assistance, should prepare a plan for the speedy dispatch of volunteers thither. There was as yet no question of Cromwell being named among the leading men of the parliamentary party, as far as the outside world was concerned. But he had acquired some reputation beyond the mere confines of Westminster, particularly as a supporter of the Puritan ministers. At the end of July, Sir William Brereton, already the leader of the opposition movement in Cheshire, wished to protest the severity being shown locally to these divines by the king's commissioners of array in charge of raising his troops. Brereton wrote 3 letters on the subject to the Speaker of the House, to his cousin, the MP Ralph Assheton, and to Oliver Cromwell. Brereton certainly gave Cromwell a graphic picture of the sufferings of these unfortunate men who badly needed protection against this harassment. Indeed, it is most apparent with Brereton, they, the king's men, intend so much to and aware the country is that none should dare oppose, discover, or speak their courses. All of which was much encouraged by the prospect of the king's arrival at that part of the country, as a result of which Brereton's deputy lieutenants were being rapidly outclassed by the commissioners of array. Brereton and Cromwell had no particular connection beyond the fact that Cromwell, with 2 others, had helped draft an official letter from the Speaker congratulating Brereton and his allies on the cheerful obedience of the county of Chester to the militia ordinance earlier in the month. Clearly, Cromwell is already known as one Congress rebelled against the president. Well, I mean, if they've been quietly assembling their militia army, the congressional militia army, to subdue the president of the United States and take him to trial, so be it.
Even if you were to grant, I'd never even heard the term insurrection before, that I couldn't understand if you came up with a term for insurrection. I said, well, fit this other criteria better, why it is that you couldn't concede that that was true. That's this absurd logic. And yes, Destiny, it's illogical.
Okay, we can move to the next caller. I'll take a few more of these that we're gonna Council Club guys. I'm going to send you guys a link on Council Club where you can join in and be the people that ask these guys the questions. And it'll be and don't worry, we won't have your face on camera because we're streaming on all the platforms. So we're going to protect your identity. If you want to be on camera, maybe we'll do that. But in general, you will just have your voice play. Who's up next?
And whoever is 7983, I see you donated, but you're not in the phone line, so.
Okay, 7893, get in there. Who's up next behind him?
1753, you're up.
1753, you're on the air with Destiny, Myron, and Andrew. Go ahead.
1753.
There you go. What's up, brother?
Yes, sir. Hello. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. What's your question for the panel?
Quick question. It's tangentially related, but Andrew, why do you think Trump didn't call anybody during the riot? Like there were 3 hours. Cops had their shit kicked out of them. He didn't call anybody except for his lawyer and stuff. But like Nancy Pelosi, that's usually the defense. She was the high queen of all Capitol security. Why didn't Trump call Nancy Pelosi?
It's not within. This is not within the purview of the. This is not within the purview of the debate. I don't care about your diatribe. I don't care about your emotional state. This is not within the purview of the debate.
All right. Next up, 8438. You are up. 8438. You are up.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, brother.
I appreciate you having me. I have a quick question for Destiny. It sounded like at the end of the debate, toward the end, he conceded to Andrew's example of the hippie rebellion and hippie insurrection. If that's the case, then wouldn't you also have to say that the inauguration for Trump in 2017, the overturning of Roe v. Wade at the Supreme Court, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nobody said anything?
Yeah, we're just listening, caller.
Yeah, just listening to you, bro. Go ahead.
Wouldn't you have to say that those two events, and then, of course, you have the White House bombing after the George Floyd death with Trump and everything, wouldn't you have to say that those would fall within the same definition as well?
I would have to go through the facts of each of these, but if you can show me that there was an assembly of people that united for a common purpose, that they were there to contravene some type of federal law, that the resistance's goal was to make use of force or intimidation, and that they were there for something that was like in the public interest, then whatever you're going to give me here, I'm going to say, well, yeah, if it's my definition of insurrection, then I would say these were probably insurrections, sure.
All right, thanks.
Also, wait, hold on. Real quick. Not only would I say that, you should say that too. Let's say, for instance, let's say that when Roe v. Wade changed or whatever, let's say the federal government was going to do a particular thing, they were gathering to, let's just say they were doing a ban on it. Let's say that you had, let's say that Kamala Harris was marching with these people, chanting and cheering them on, and saying like, we're going to stop the government from banning abortion, okay? They're going to sign this law today, we're not going to let them do it, we're going to make our voice here, we're going to go and fight like hell, we're going to do what we need to do to make them not pass this law. They show up when it's going to be signed, she's outside cheering them on as they break into the Capitol building, they go in. When we talk about whether an insurrection is occurring or not, right, and we talk about the 14th Amendment, you shouldn't want her to be president again. You should say, hey, you took an oath to the Constitution, and now you're engaging in insurrectionist behavior. You're violating your oath to the Constitution. I don't want you running for office again. We should all think that. I would think that. All of us should have that feeling, that if somebody has engaged in or aided in helping people engage in insurrection, that you shouldn't want this person who was in office.
Like, 2 hours? If I said that this being on, I might have gone and gotten a bar or something.
to run for office again, I would say.
All right, we'll move on to the next caller. And guys, just so you know, we're going to drop the Castle Club link, the Zoom call link in Castle Club right now. So get in there and then raise your hand in the Zoom call, and we'll answer one or two more calls, and we'll go over to the Castle Club guys only. But we're going to drop the link right now. Castle Club guys, go ahead and join CastleClub.tv. You know how to support, free speech on our side. And but we'll take a few more callers while we get that set up on our Zoom side. Who's up next, Mo?
4849.
Okay, 4849.
4849.
You're on there with Destiny, Myron, and Andrew. What is your question, brother?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome to the show.
All right, cool. So this whole debate was over a definition of was this event the thing of insurrection? So if you were to pick something like, we'll say there's a shape, and we were going to debate whether this shape was a square or not. Andrew's argument seems to be that, that may be.
Are we going to argue how Katie doesn't like me, John? You're gonna break it to me that you and Katie are. I remember John would be like, "There's a connection between you and Katie." When I looked into her eyes. John has that feeling about life. Katie's fine, so Telia's daughter we're concerned about at the moment. I'm sure you're spiritual, like Mother Plane, John. Yeah, your spirit, you're timeless. Yes. Oh, it's so a funny story about me and Fruity and Swan.
That's how we do lies. You know, we use court's opinions to figure out whether this is falls under the court's, the federal definition of what everybody agrees that is. And so the saying, I don't have to define what a square is, it fits my definition of a rhombus fine, then I don't see what we're arguing, because it seems like Andrew within that definition. So
you cut out, caller.
Agrees, but he doesn't like the name.
Bro, hang on. You cut out. Me and Destiny both missed maybe 15 seconds there.
Oh, sorry. Do you know where it was that it stopped? I'm just saying that the definition of riot and insurrection is not mutually exclusive. And so that just because he says that, this fits my personal definition of a riot, does not necessarily mean that it's also not an insurrection. And the fact that they were trying to prevent some function of the government from happening, some law from being followed or carried out by the U.S. government.
Attention, Costco Sales Associates, the District Costco Sales Associates. For the next 15 minutes, will you please put our caricatures on minimum staffing with assistant managers and above, and may Costco Sales Associates and all 4 attendees please come to the auditorium, meaning the back off. There are allegations that you looted your previous employer. That is all. There will be some gentlemen there. Please have your ID that you used to get this job. If you do not have it, you'll be taken to isolation, where when your turn comes, they will take you in a van to your residence and help you retrieve it. That is all.
Well, if the burden of proof to say that it's not an insurrection is on the person who's claiming.
No, it's not my burden to say it's not. It's not my burden to say that it is.
You have no
the burden of proof is on the person who makes the claim, not for me to negate said claim, but for them to prove it. That's the distinction. Do you understand that?
You say you have no claim that it's not an
You're not. Why? No. Answer my question. Do I need to negate a claim for you to be able to prove it? Can't you prove a claim?
Well, if you're
Answer my question, dude.
It categorically does not fit the term.
Yeah, I know. You're not answering the question, right?
Term insurrection.
All right. All right. Whatever you say, bro.
I know you don't want to answer. It's fine. So.
All right. We'll go to next caller. And just you
just
guys.
as a real quick thing, so like the prompt was January 6th an insurrection? Debating my definition of insurrection doesn't satisfy the prompt. It only satisfies attacking my position. But even if you did manage to completely defeat my position, not by actually showing, because you're not even really defeating my position, you're just making my position incoherent. But by doing so, you're also admitting that your position is incoherent as well, right? If you can prove that I don't have a good definition for
Do you
insurrection,
remember at the?
if you can prove
yeah.
that I don't have a good definition for insurrection, then you can prove that my position of saying it is an insurrection is incoherent. I would have to use some other word.
So
you
do
haven't
you
even given a position at all. So
yeah,
at
so
best,
do
you've
you-
only put us both at neutral, which is
Do
kind
you
of meaningless.
remember? Do you remember in the beginning of the debate where I gave you the criteria for the concessions that I would make if you were willing to concede on X, Y, Z point?
Yeah, but we're not here to just argue. Does destiny have a
But if I,
satisfactory definition of insurrection?
yeah, but if I
which
can
is what the debate
negate
has
and we
become.
both, but if I have no negation, but we end up on neutral because your definition is incoherent, then do you remember when I said in my opening statement that the goal of that was to show that you no longer have the moral high ground because everything's a fucking insurrection at that point, and that means you're as much of an insurrectionist as the people you're accusing of being insurrectionists. That's
to be
the
clear,
point.
that wouldn't make everything an insurrection. That would just make all riots an insurrection.
Yeah, I was being hyperbolic.
Okay, well, that's kind of hard when you're also being illogical. But
No,
the
I wasn't
idea
being
is
illogical.
that, yeah, all you're doing is reducing us both to the same position, which seems odd at the end of the day. But okay.
Why? Depends on what the goal of the debate is. In this
The
particular
goal was to
case,
show that both
I
of us are
believe-
neutral on whether
Yeah,
January 6th
no,
was an insurrection.
no,
You know that you don't
no,
actually
if
believe
you're
that. You believe it
neutral-
wasn't,
if
right?
You're neutral, if you're
Mhm.
neutral on whether or not January 6th is an insurrection, your claim is voided.
But then so would yours be, unless your claim is
What
you don't
claim
have a
am I
position.
making?
Well,
my claim is
if
only
you're,
that.
if you're a
my claim is
challenger,
only
if
that
you're a
you can't
challenger,
demonstrate it was.
if I say that January 6th
this was an insurrection is false.
Okay, but then your claim that it wasn't an insurrection is also false.
I never made such a claim.
What is your claim? Your claim is just that you're neutral, you have no position on it?
My claim was that I could be swayed either way. That
Well,
you
but that's
could
not what the
convince
debate.
me.
The debate wasn't
You
here
could
to
convince
sway you.
me.
Well, no, you can't be convinced because you can't even accept the definition of insurrection. So that's just not true.
Well, I can be convinced, and you just saying you can't be convinced doesn't mean anything again.
So are you unconvinced by historical courts that have convicted people or used these definitions of insurrection in order to write legislation or in order to write constitutional amendments? What do you think the founding fathers meant? Not founding fathers, I guess. What do you think the framers of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment meant when they said insurrection? What do you think?
I think that they're tying it to rebellion.
Why would
Because
they?
every
But they very
Because
clearly.
every time I saw it, it seemed to coexist with rebellion. Every single time I see this, it seems like it's a lead towards rebellion.
If you agree that it meant rebellion, why would there be so many people that draw distinctions between insurrection and rebellion?
Yeah, until it comes to charging time. When it comes to charging time, it seems that if they can't draw it
Hold on.
towards
Why do you
rebellion-
keep just because you're talking about charges, criminal court and calling a
Well,
thing a
if
thing
you're
are
going to
two
appeal
different
to
things?
if you're going to appeal to authorities here based around legal definitions, it's perfectly acceptable for me to appeal to the legal authorities, which are refusing to charge under this criteria, Destiny. They're refusing to charge under this criteria for insurrection, and it seems every definition that I can find for this is somehow vaguely associated with rebellion.
Yeah, it's associated with it because they believed in every rebellion started with an insurrection, but that doesn't mean that every rebellion is an insurrection. That's why they use rebellion or insurrection, for
Yeah,
instance, in
perhaps
Section
not.
2 of the
So-
Second Confiscation Act. You can't give any historical things, though.
So I think if
right?
there was-
so,
if
for
there
instance,
was a
they say in
big
any
open-
rebellion or insurrection, inciting and setting foot on, assisting or engaging in any rebellion or insurrection, which is set under Section 2 of the Second Confiscation Act, they're not. They're two different things. That's why they use.
But the reason that I think that the Supreme Court especially didn't want to hear this is because they would end up like you giving a definition which was so broad that it would encompass all sorts of things that we don't really perceive of as being insurrections, because we really associate insurrection and rebellion with the same kind of idea. which is exactly why I don't believe for a second, while you're over there saying you're good faith, that you believe for a second that if a bunch of dope-smoking hippies to, kind of resist federal law went and smoked a bunch of joints on federal property and a couple of them got rowdy, you would believe that that was an insurrection. I don't believe you. I simply
If a
don't
bunch of
believe
people smoking weed went and started setting fire to forests in the United States, America, on federal property because they were trying to get them to overturn...
No, a couple of them did. They started a small fire, let's say, right? Not a huge blazing forest fire. They just started a small fire. There was a little bit of rioting there, right? Somebody got beat up. A couple of them had maybe some melee weapons. I don't think we would associate that with rebellion, and so I don't think we would associate that with insurrection, which is what I think we associate with rebellion.
I'm sorry, because I don't know the logical structures of argumentation as well as you do. When you say people probably wouldn't do that, what kind of an argument are we making there? When you say that, like, people probably wouldn't think that's an insurrection, what kind of logical appeal are we making to challenge my definition? The people probably wouldn't think appeal?
Yeah, so
what is that? What structure are we
So
following?
hang on. So we'll again, we're going to untangle two different ideas. So I already gave you the critique of your definition. When you ask me what Andrew, what do you associate with this thing, which is your direct question? What types of things do you associate with this? I tell you. Then I say, if that's the type of thing that I associate with it, I also think most people associate that type of thing with it as well. So these are two different
I don't care
ideas.
what most people, I'm looking at the legal and historical understanding of it, right? So in the Amy Warwick Prize case, the Supreme Court said insurrection against a government may or may not culminate in an organized rebellion, but a civil war always begins by insurrection against the lawful authority of the government. A rebellion
Civil
was
War
the...
did not begin.
The Civil War didn't begin with an insurrection?
No, a civil war did not begin because of J6.
That it says insurrection against a government may or may not culminate in an organized rebellion.
That's correct. So it could.
So there was an insurrection against the government. It didn't culminate in a rebellion, but those are two different things.
Yes,
and I can show you Supreme Court cases where they've said they're two different things. So your idea here of, well, they probably thought they were the same doesn't really seem...
Unfortunately, it's too nebulous here for us to associate this specifically with only the idea of insurrection when there's other ideas that fit it better.
Is there a single... historical scholar, Supreme Court case, writer or framer or lawmaker ever that you can cite to that says that there is a nebulous, there's no understanding of what insurrection is?
Well, actually, yes. So the Supreme Court justices themselves have stated this. I do have a quote from one of the Supreme Court justices who said, this is not an easy thing to tackle because the idea of it is contested and somewhat nebulous. I believe, in fact, that was Justice, now I'm paraphrasing, but I believe that was Justice Roberts who said that.
And what was the full quote here?
I would have to pull the quote up, so I'm paraphrasing, right? But it was something akin to, this idea is actually, it's a hard associative idea. This was from Roberts himself. The Supreme Court clearly did not want to weigh in on this because they were afraid of making a definition like your own, which would be so broad. Are you disputing this? Let's start with this. Are you disputing that you think the Supreme Court didn't weigh in on this because they were afraid that they could make a definition of this, which was so broad that things would fall under the category of insurrection that they really didn't want to fall under that category?
I don't think the Supreme Court made a strong statement about insurrection.
Yeah, what do you think, though? I'm asking you what you actually think.
They didn't really rule on the insurrection part.
I know they didn't rule on it, but why do you think they really didn't want to hear it? Why do you think it is that this is kind of such a hard concept for people to kind of get their minds around? It's because it is somewhat nebulous. It is associated with rebellion. And yes, there's precedents for these things, but the precedents don't directly apply to what J6 was.
It doesn't matter. The issue wasn't the issue.
Hang on, man. Let me finish my point, and then you can respond. Other things do seem to associate with it better. That's the point. Your definition is far too broad. You knew it would be far too broad. The Supreme Court also knows this. That's why the Supreme Court themselves, I think, really didn't want to go in and rule on it, because it would retroactively make a bunch of Democrats and Republicans insurrectionists based on other things that they have done.
That's great, and that's a bunch of reading into that Supreme Court decision that they had never said. But I'm pretty sure that the rationale that they gave and the issue was that different minds could disagree on whether or not an insurrection had taken place, and the idea that different states would make different decisions about it seemed to be very difficult difficult for them. So in Barrett's
So it's
concurrence-
nebulous. It's a little bit nebulous. They can't really agree because it's kind of a nebulous concept, right?
Do you think that murder is a nebulous concept?
I think that justification for murder can be very nebulous.
Do you
if it
think that
comes to-
murder is a
Stop,
nebulous
stop, bro,
concept?
stop.
Why
Let
are you
me ask
rambling?
the question.
No, I asked you a question. Do you think murder
No,
is a
answer
nebulous
the- I'm
concept?
answering the question.
Do you think
So
murder
now
is a
let me
nebulous
an-
concept?
I'm trying to answer the question whenever you're ready to let me answer.
All right, I'm just gonna repeat it when you're done rambling. But
Okay, well, I'm not going to ramble. I'm going to give you an actual direct answer. Certain aspects of murder, when it comes to justification, can be very nebulous, yes. Like right to retreat laws can be very nebulous. Yes, that can constitute murder. It can be very nebulous. We have some concept of it, but it's not really something which is easily graspable. Yes, it can be very nebulous, Destiny, yes.
and yet we still have criminal convictions for murder.
That's true. We do still have criminal convictions for murder, which does not demonstrate your point at all.
It absolutely does. If a court
How?
is capable of determining whether or not a person can have a severe
That's
restriction
right.
to
And
their
what
life
did
or
they
liberty,
determine?
the
They
column-
determined that none of them committed insurrection. That's what they determined.
That's not what they determined. What they
Yes,
determined
it is
was
what they determined.
Really? Where in the Supreme
Yeah,
Court
what did they
opinion does
charge
it say
him?
that?
Hang on, what did they charge him with? They
No
charged
one
him
is
with
being charged.
insurrection?
The Supreme Court is not a first review
I'm not
court
talking
of
about the
fact.
Supreme Court.
I don't know what
I'm
you're talking
saying-
about then.
what I'm
No one is.
saying to you-
I'm sorry. Where in the 14th Amendment does it say the
Wait,
crime of
you're-
insurrection?
All you're doing is speed talking. What I'm saying to you is when you ask me, are certain aspects of murder nebulous? Yes, of course, certain aspects of murder are nebulous. Can people still be charged over those aspects? Yes. Can they be prosecuted? Yes. But you say, well, then there, you can prove it. Great, I agree. You can prove it. And when these people were prosecuted, they were not prosecuted for insurrection. So clearly, they didn't think it was insurrection, or at least it seems like they didn't think it was insurrection because they certainly didn't charge anybody with that.
Gotcha. Just as a quick spiel or whatever, because Andrew has no concept of how law or courts or anything works in the United States, the 14th Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with somebody being charged with a criminal conviction of insurrection. Criminal conviction of insurrection has nothing to do with any of this. And the question before the court in Trump v. Anderson wasn't whether or not somebody had engaged in the crime of insurrection. And the big issue that they cited to for why they rejected that case was because Section 5 of the 14th Amendment said that Congress can pass laws in order to implement something, and they interpreted it as meaning Section 3 could be implemented via the Section 5 power of the Congress, and that's why they threw that case out. They didn't
Total
make a
bait and
ruling.
switch.
It's not a bait and switch. It's just a basic
It is.
understanding of
Here's
how
why
courts
it's a
work.
bait-
But
no,
all I
total
was
bait and
saying, was that you saying, well, it's nebulous, therefore a court can't decide that question. Courts deal with nebulous things literally all of the time.
That wasn't
the
my
idea
claim
that
either.
a court can't deal with something that's nebulous like insurrection,
Wasn't
when
my
courts deal
claim.
with things like murder or affirmative defenses like self-defense or anything else, is a ridiculous claim, and it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what courts are even supposed to do.
Yeah,
what courts
except
are
that
even
wasn't my
capable of doing.
claim. So here's the great kind of Destiny bait and switch, right? He just did a typical bait and switch. What he did was he said this. He said, Andrew, do you think that a court can do A, B, and C, or they can in some way rule or adjudicate even with a nebulous concept? My answer was yes. I think that even with a nebulous concept, they can. In this case, right, even if we were to grant Destiny's argument that they can do this under nebulous concepts, they still didn't charge these people with insurrection, even if that's a nebulous concept. What he did instead was he did a bait and switch and said, oh, but he doesn't understand the law, blah,
Why
blah,
do
blah,
you
blah,
keep
blah.
using
But
the
this
same
was a
argument that's been
lead-in.
shot down?
This was a lead-in
Does
question.
somebody need to be charged with
And
insurrection for an insurrection
hang
to
on,
have had
bro,
occurred?
let me finish my point. I just let you go through your whole
It's the same
diatribe.
gish gallop.
So I went, it's not a gish
It is a
gallop,
gish
it's a
gallop.
direct
You're repeating
response.
debunked arguments.
You don't even know what a gish gallop is. You're
I
just
do. It's
spurting
when you
over
lay
me.
a whole bunch of
So
bad claims
anyway,
on
I'm
over
not
and over and
laying
over
any
again with the
claims.
idea that the
refuting the
opponent
claims you
can't
made.
actually refute them because you keep stacking the same
Bro,
bad claims over and over again.
you made the claim. I'm refuting it.
You're
so
not
this was
refuting
a
any claim. You're
basic.
refuting
This
the
was a
same debunked
this was a
arguments.
basic lead-in, and I proved the basic lead-in wrong. And so that's when he went off on the diatribe about, well, what the the court, blah blah blah. What about the courts? What about the precedents? Well, that had nothing to do with the actual lead-in question, which is what I was responding to. That's a classic bait and switch.
You said that the Supreme Court didn't rule on the definition because it was too nebulous. That's not
Because
true.
you
That's not why
asked
they
me,
rejected it.
you asked me, why do you think the Supreme Court acts? And so I just gave you my opinion. I think possibly it's because this is a nebulous concept. They didn't want to weigh in. It seems that Roberts agreed. When you read initially what Roberts said, it seems like that's what he's saying there, is that there's going to be a lot of disagreement here because we can't quite agree on this. That sounds nebulous to me.
All right. How about this? We'll take one more caller, and then we'll go to the Castle Club guys. Let's get the guy on the line.
Yes.
Go ahead.
0789.
0789, go ahead, hit the line. And then after him, I actually do have a potential topic of discussion for the panel. But let's get this caller on first. Go ahead.
0789, you are up. 0789, you are up.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. What's up, brother?
Awesome. Great. Mr. Wilson, big fan, Absolute Cinema, and I have a question for Mr. Borelli. If I knew what sexual assault was, but I had no fucking clue what rape was, could you ever prove to me that a rape took place? Because I
No,
think
because whatever definition you give, whatever definition I give for rape, you're just going to say it would fit with sexual assault. Yeah. No, true. Yeah. If you had no idea what rape was, but you knew well what sexual assault was, then any single time I try to define, well, I think a rape has occurred, you would just say, no, I think this fits with sexual assault. You would never give a definition of rape, and then you would just use that to try to win the argument. Yeah.
He left.
I think you left. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and start switching on over to the Castle Club members. I'll hit a couple of these hands, and then I do have something that I was going to bring up to the panel. Who's the first person on, Bills? All right, we're going to go.
Oh, no. What's going on?
Absolutely nothing to do with somebody being charged with a criminal conviction of insurrection. Criminal conviction of insurrection has nothing to do with any of this. And the question before the court in Trump v. Anderson wasn't whether or not somebody had engaged in the crime of insurrection. And the big issue that they cited to for why they rejected that case was because Section 5 of the 14th Amendment said that Congress can pass laws in order to implement something, and they interpreted it as meaning Section 3 could be implemented via the Section 5 power of the Congress, and that's why they threw that case out. They didn't
Total
make a
bait and
ruling.
switch.
It's not a bait and switch. It's just a
It
basic
is.
understanding of
Here's
how
why
courts
it's a
work.
bait-
But
no,
all I
total
was
bait and
saying,
switch.
all I was saying was that it's nebulous, therefore a court can't decide that question. Courts deal with nebulous things literally all of the time.
That wasn't my claim
idea that
either.
a court can't deal with something that's nebulous like insurrection
Wasn't
when
my
courts deal
claim.
with things like murder or affirmative defenses like self-defense or anything else is a ridiculous claim, and it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what courts are even supposed to do.
Yeah,
what courts
except
are
that
even
wasn't my
capable of doing.
claim. So here's the great kind of Destiny bait and switch, right? He just did a typical bait and switch. What he did was he said this. He said, Andrew, do you think that a court can do A, B, and C, or they can in some way rule or adjudicate even with a nebulous concept? My answer was yes. I think that even with a nebulous concept, they can. In this case, right, even if we were to grant Destiny's argument that they can do this under nebulous concepts, they still didn't charge these people with insurrection, even if that's a nebulous concept. What he did instead was he did a bait and switch and said, "Oh, but he doesn't understand the law." Blah
Why
blah
do
blah
you
blah
keep
blah.
using
But
the
this
same
was a
argument that's been
lead-in.
shot down?
This was a lead-in
Does
question.
somebody need to be charged with
And
insurrection for
and
insurrection
hang
to
on,
have had
bro.
occurred?
Let me finish my point. I just let you go through your whole
It's the same
diatribe.
gish gallop.
So I went. It's not a gish
It is a
gallop.
gish
It's a
gallop.
direct
You're repeating
response.
debunked arguments.
You don't even know what a gish gallop is. You're
I
just
do. It's
spurting
when you
over
lay
me.
a whole bunch of
So
bad claims
anyway,
on
I'm
over
not
and over and
laying
over
any
again with the
claims. I'm
idea that the
refuting the
opponent
claims you
can't
made.
actually refute them because you keep stacking the same
Bro,
bad claims over and
you
over again.
made the claim. I'm refuting it.
You're
So
not
this was
refuting
a
any claim. You're
basic.
refuting the
This was a
same debunked
this was a
arguments.
basic lead-in, and I proved the basic lead-in wrong. And so that's when he went off on the diatribe about, well, what the the court, blah blah blah. What about the courts? What about the precedents? Well, that had nothing to do with the actual lead-in question, which is what I was responding to. That's a classic bait and switch.
You said that the Supreme Court didn't rule on the definition because it was too nebulous. That's not
Because
true.
you
That's not why
asked
they
me,
rejected it.
you asked me, why do you think the Supreme Court acts? And so I just gave you my opinion. I think possibly it's because this is a nebulous concept. They didn't want to weigh in. It seems that Roberts agreed. When you read initially what Roberts said, it seems like that's what he's saying there, is that there's going to be a lot of disagreement here because we can't quite agree on this. That sounds nebulous to me.
All right. How about this? We'll take one more caller, and then we'll go to the Castle Club guys. Let's get the guy on the line.
Yes.
Go ahead.
0789.
0789. Go ahead, hit the line. And then after him, I actually do have a potential topic of discussion for the panel. But let's get this caller on first. Go ahead.
0789, you are up. 0789, you are up.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. What's up, brother?
Awesome. Great. Mr. Wilson, big fan, Absolute Cinema. And I have a question for Mr. Borelli. If I knew what sexual assault was, but I had no fucking clue what rape was. Could you ever prove to me that a rape took place? Because I
no,
think
because whatever definition you give, whatever definition I give for rape, you're just going to say it would fit with sexual assault. Yeah. No, true. Yeah. If you had no idea what rape was, but you
I knew what sexual assault was, but I had no fucking clue what rape was. Could you ever prove to me that a rape took place? Because I
no,
think
because whatever definition you give, whatever definition I give for rape, you're just going to say it would fit with sexual assault. Yeah. No, true. Yeah. If you had no idea what rape was, but you knew well what sexual assault was, then any single time I try to define, well, I think a rape has occurred, you would just say, no, I think this fits with sexual assault. You would never give a definition of rape, and then you would just use that to try to win the argument. Yeah.
He left.
I think you left. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and start switching on over to the Castle Club members. I'll hit a couple of these hands, and then I do have something that I was going to bring up to the panel. Who's the first person on, Bills? All right, we're going to go ahead. And just for the guys on Castle Club that are waiting, we're not going to put you on camera because we're live on YouTube and all the platforms, so I want to protect your guys' identities.
I knew what sexual assault was, but I had no fucking clue what rape was. Could you ever prove to me that a rape took place? Because I
no,
think
because whatever definition you give, whatever definition I give for rape, you're just going to say it would fit with sexual assault. Yeah. No, true. Yeah. If you had no idea what rape was, but you knew well what sexual assault was, then any single time I try to define, well, I think a rape has occurred, you would just say, no, I think this fits with sexual assault. You would never give a definition of rape, and then you would just use that to try to win the argument. Yeah.
I knew what sexual assault was, but I had no fucking clue what rape was. Could you ever prove to me that a rape took place? Because I
no,
think
because whatever definition you give, whatever definition I give for rape, you're just going to say it would fit with sexual assault. Yeah. No, true. Yeah. If you had no idea what rape was, but you knew well what sexual assault was, then any single time I try to define, well, I think a rape has occurred, you would just say, no, I think this fits with sexual assault. You would never give a definition of rape, and then you would just use that to try to win the argument. Yeah.
He left.
I think you left. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and start switching on over to the Castle Club members. I'll hit a couple of these hands, and then I do have something that I was going to bring up to the panel. Who's the first person on, Bills? All right, we're going to go ahead. And just for the guys on Castle Club that are waiting, we're not going to put you on camera because we're live on YouTube and all the platforms, so I want to protect your guys' identities.
Yeah, I have a Tumblr. What of it? I made it after well, Tumblr used to be like hardcore, like progressive, so progressive they didn't share pictures of the stuff just coming out like after revisiting Five Guys. They had those people on there.
But we'll go ahead and get the first person in that had something, Bills. Do we have them ready? Yeah, locals only. Yeah, Castle. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Oh no, not for the stream.
Damn. Just confirming, bro.
Yeah, no. I meant as in like it's fine. Go ahead. Just it's fine. We'll get these because they're still live on their platform, so it's cool.
Okay.
Is whatever.
Far back, I just had to clap it. That was just that was fascinating. I'm not to listen to it and like read the transcript of it. What happened? You know, I really don't know what they're talking about. January 6th. I just don't feel like prosecuting anybody right now. Right here, they just prosecute themselves. I hang out at the courthouse for fun. Place like this, everybody knows each other. And we used to. Oh, the long time so many people left without ever coming back and search for opportunity. Big cities, adventure. It's just pace of life. Like, do you feel like you know Destiny, like he's your friend or something, or your buddy? It doesn't even exist in the regular world. The world I came from, that's out there, and this is all where I spend most of my time. I don't even know the dude. Now, Andrew, on the other hand, even a little bit of approval, even just that one text message. I wonder if it'll like start with streaming normal once I exit this. I'm pretty sure it will. But anyway, you get the point. I made this account under a name that I know that I'd have to get like really huge notoriety on it for the for the for the political enforcers that work to find me making statements that haven't been approved by the PR people. Got that name from like a little quiz thing, the little game app put on Facebook. That's about all you need to know. I have a lot of social streaming sites. One of the reasons is because I figure there's so much surveillance footage that I might as well put my own footage out there. Good job, FBI surveillance man. You ever logged on their Wi-Fi?